Good morning. It's August 27th, 2024, and I'd like to open the regular meeting for the Klickitat County Commissioners, noting that all three commissioners are present. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So approval of the business agenda.
I don't have any changes. Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the business agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Aye.
Oh, all those in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the commissioner meeting minutes from August 13th, 2024 as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Oh, it's on, it's just not tipped.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So yes, you have to excuse that. I was on 3 Zooms yesterday, 3 different boards, and they all do everything differently, voting. Yeah. You never know. Okay, so public comment. For those that would like to make comment in the room, we'll call on you. If you raise your hand, come forward and let us know where you're from if you can. Oh, just one second. And we're going to invite the people on Zoom to raise your hand and we'll call on you. And we'll start with the 2 gentlemen that just came forward.
I can't hear.
We'll start with you. Go ahead.
Are the green lights on your mics down there?
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm hard of hearing, I'm sorry, so I have to. I'm here to put on public record, I think each of you got a copy. Dated August 27th, to whom it concerns. On this date, I'm submitting a complaint to the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office pertaining to these charges: abuse, theft, obstruction of justice. Because of the ongoing investigation, all questions must be directed to the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office. The next point is that facts need to be checked and I cannot say anything until these facts have been verified. My name is Ross McKechnie, Post Office Box 61, Goldendale, Washington 98620. Copies, and I've been involved with the Washington Attorney General's Office and the Klickitat County Commissioners. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone on Zoom this morning ready to give public comment? No, don't see any hands yet this one. Good morning, Roger Nichols.
Good morning, and I really apologize to ask this, but I'm really trying to understand the very complex situation involved with the Dellsport Water District. And I'm hoping to get at least some straight information about what specific factors are preventing the county from honoring the contract with the Dellsport Water District. Sorry about that. Thank you.
No apology. Thank you, Roger. Back in the room. Not ready yet, Mr. Smith, huh? Okay. Gabrielle Gilbert.
Yeah, hi, thank you for taking my call. I want to talk about you're doing budget over this period of time for Klickitat County, and what you write your check to is what you value, and the young people and children of this county deserve to see their value honored. The families of children in this county deserve to see their value honored. And it's time for the county to get serious about their investments into the children and youth of this county. We need in White Salmon a basketball court that can be placed in the park for young people to have access to. There are grant dollars through OSPI, which is a clean $200,000 grant possibility, and it doesn't require matching grants, but for whatever the cost of that basketball court could be, we look to the county to invest in the young people in the county and to get resources for them. I think that other counties, especially in the Dalles, are addressing the youth and also the childcare desert. And I think the county of Klickitat needs to start addressing that as well. And I don't think you get to hide behind your core functioning responsibilities. And I don't think you get to hide behind regulations that you're concerned about. Yet I don't see you in Olympia fighting against that or doing anything about that. I think you make those your excuses for why you don't act. And I think that the young people and families in this county deserve better. And I want to see more leadership on this. And I'm exhausted by the excuses. So I appreciate your time. Have a great day.
Thank you, Gabby. Back in the room. Anyone with comment this morning? Alan? Oh, Anne, I'm sorry, I couldn't see. Thank you. Good morning. You'll have to unmute yourself, Anne.
I apologize. I forgot to do that. This is Ann Sleed down at 208 D Street in Dellsport, and I wanted to take a moment to let the Klickitat County residents know that the Dellsport Murdoch Community Council is holding a Commissioners Candidates Night on September 12th, 7 p.m. It's taking the place of our regular DMCC meeting. It will be at the Dellsport Community Center. All Klickitat County residents, voters, are welcome to attend. We are hoping for a really good turnout. All four of the commissioner candidates that will be on the ballot in November have agreed to come. Thank you, Dan. You're the only one there I can say thank you to right now. This will be an opportunity for the voters to find out where all four of the commissioner candidates stand on the issues that are important to them. Things like how the jail's going to be handled, the wastewater treatment plant, the taxes and budgets and where the money is going, the holdup on the park that we're trying to put in at Dallasport. Anything that is important to the voters, they'll have an opportunity to submit questions that can be asked to one or more of the commissioner candidates on any topic, as long as everything's respectful, it's all fair. So we just want to encourage folks to show up, find out what's going on. And I'll probably say the same thing next weekend because we want to get the word out. So you guys have a good day.
Thank you. In the room? Okay, back online. Is there anyone else this morning? You'll have to raise your hand so we can recognize you if you'd like to give comment this morning. That or unmute. I'm not seeing anyone. Mr. Smith. It'll be just a second, Sherry. Mr. Smith. You let Sherry go first? Okay, sure. Sherry, are you back on there? I see you. There you are. Okay. Good morning, Sherry.
Good morning, County Commissioners. I just wanted to bring up the elephant in the renewable energy world, the turbine fire that happened last week where a blade flew off, and it's captured by locals on their cameras that this indeed happened, which on the other hand, good for the response teams, all the emergency vehicles. Somebody estimated there were at least 12 that they could see. So that does say that our county didn't want another Juniper Canyon fire with another wind turbine spreading throughout other people's private properties. And that's what we should be afraid of with these fires. I'm sure we're all on the same page as people in this world and who own properties, that when fires get started, there's a chance it could reach our properties and damage our homes due to wherever that fire started. So if these wind turbines are becoming a problem with their age and they're doing these disasters, and I mean, I'm sure that we'll never know the extent of what really happened with that wind turbine. Because as we discussed before, these are private corporations, foreign private corporations in the end. We do know we can trace them back to their daddies who are foreign. And, do they care about the locals? We don't know. I mean, we use our local resources. Thank you, local resources. But now the people pay for those local resources. The corporations don't pay for them. We do. And so as we're moving forward with this push on renewable energies, and like I've said before, it's my conviction, it is a scam among the people in our energy grid. But as our county has decision making with these renewables, I think we need to be very cautious of what we do, because as we see, fires affect other people's land. And if this wind turbine, and again, I'd like to know where that blade went. It clearly is gone. It flew off. Where'd that go? And if that's closer to a road, could that hit a car? And whose loved one would that be? We really need to look at what this renewable energy is, and what does it bring our county, and what does it harm our people. So I just wanted to bring up that, and I don't want this covered up. I want it talked about. And are these wind turbines becoming more and more dangerous as they age? Oh, and I'd like to know if that Juniper Canyon wind turbine was ever decommissioned. What happened to that fire one? And then what is going to happen to this one that just happened? Who's going to decommission it? And I'm worried for the landowners. What's their lease say? Are they going to be stuck with stuff? So let's really get honest about the inhabitants that live here and decision making in the future for renewable energies. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Sherry. I haven't heard that for a while. Okay, back in the room, Mr. Smith. You didn't raise your hand, but
She has more points than I do. Hopefully you guys had a good weekend. And staff. Andrew Smith, Klickitat County. I'd like the jail to stay with the sheriff's department. That's my feeling on that. Despite whatever is going to happen in the future, I've been halted on all kinds of stuff dealing with the jail. So, budget's coming up. Notice that you're putting the budgets clear out there in September, nothing earlier, no workshops even earlier than that. Hopefully we can do something a little sooner than that. I think a month away is a long time away. School's back in. I did have some other comments, but somebody took it right out of my mouth. So anyway, appreciate everything. Thanks for your time and good luck.
thank you. Back online. Is there anybody wanting to do comment online on Zoom this morning? You would have to raise your hand or unmute so we know you'd like to speak. Let's see, no one. No, nobody in the room. One more time on Zoom. Rebsky?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Robert Brown from Dallasport. Okay, let us discuss yet again fire flow at the airport. There's some confusion about what that term really means. At the beginning of the original contract for the airport, it was agreed upon to double the primary water treatment system at Dallasport from 300 gallons per minute to 600 gallons per minute. This is very important. In 2018, when the fruit packers came in, it was yet again discussed to increase this, double this capacity. Water flow for firefighting at the airport requires 1,800 gallons a minute flow. The tanks start at 20-foot level. As the fire flow is being pushed out to the airport, it needs to be replaced in the tank at 600 gallons a minute. That way, the fire flow will last for 2 hours down to 10-foot level. At the 10-foot level in the tanks, fire flow will be cut off to protect potable water for the community. Mr. Anderson has in the past stated that, oh, it's no big deal, we'll just bypass the vessels, which is the primary water treatment system for our potable water. Okay, you realize that the second you do that, you contaminate our potable water, our drinking water. So I find it pretty incredible that a county official would want to contaminate the drinking water for 1,300 people. This has gone on extremely way too long, since 2010. There's been efforts by apparently the commissioner on the land gas fund board, to continue to block the doubling of the vessels, or as it is truly called, the primary water purification system for Dallasport. Dallasport water struggles to keep the levels in the tanks to 20 feet because we can only put 300 gallons a minute in the tanks, especially during the summer when the fruit packers are operating. This has gone on too long. I've seen in rebuttal from the county officials sitting up there in those seats, just throwing misinformation at the wall and all of this fight over this and valuing of the water, trying to change the contract. It states right in the contract that it can't be changed. Come on, grow up, get out of the 50s, quit allowing the people in the background who are trying to manipulate and profit off of the taxpayer and the ratepayer. Thank you.
Thank you. Back in the room. Is anyone else online this morning? Seeing no one, unmute or raise your hand. We'll give you a minute. No one else in the room. Very quiet this morning in the room. Online one more time. We'll give you a couple of seconds. So if not, we will move to close public comment and move to commissioner's comment. Thank you. Who would like to start this morning? Mr. Christopher?
I always start. I will prepare and I'll let you know when I'm ready.
Okay. Mr. Anderson, are you still working on?
Still working on my.
Okay, well, usually the chair goes last, but I'll go first this morning. Roger, thank you for calling in. I agree. It's a very complicated situation, and hearing from Mr. Brown and others about the Dallasport two situations, the wastewater treatment plant and also the water contract. I've had some conversations with Mr. Nichols recently, and the only good information I have, besides hearing from both sides of the party, is to look at the documents that have been created and rely on legal counsel to interpret those documents for me. And that's legal counsel from several sides in several places. And until I understand what's legally correct, I cannot make a decision or take a stand. I'm not going to put either side in that position if I don't know what I'm talking about. I want to be sure that I have my information qualified. And you hear lots of things, even including Mr. Brown, the fire flow at the airport. I did hear a recent situation in the Dalles where they had a fire and they had to use their fire flow, and it did use it to the point that it impacted the potable water. So I don't know where the legal parameters are. I'm not a fire chief. I'm not a fire official, and I would have to ask those questions. And I don't know if anybody's asked that. You know, where is the threshold of water you can use before it turns into a different situation? And until I understand that, I would not comment on those. Gabrielle, yep, we're going into budget. And it's tough. Each year, like everybody else with their personal budgets, our budgets dwindle. not just because of potential income, but also because of increases in what the budget costs us, just like your own household. So sitting through those upcoming budget hearings, we are required to address mandatory services to the public first. So we'll look at public health, safety, all those things that we have to apply. And then from there, we'll take that budget and divide it down between the other things that the county supplies to county residents, and childcare is on that list. I know that's a priority, but it's not, unfortunately, an absolute required by the state. But it is on the continuing list, and I'm sure we'll take a look at it this year, but it will not come off my list in the upcoming years. And thank you for holding the candidates night, and it's a lot of work to put those on. And thank you for reaching out several times and letting people know. It's always disappointing if you get to a meeting and the public isn't there and hasn't heard about it. So I appreciate you letting everybody know when that is. Sherry, I am working through the past fire plans, looking at those. I'm working with our planner. I have concerns just like you do, what was issued with those permits, and I want to understand what obligations they are under for those potential fires with the turbines and even the solar. And I want to look into, we've had almost 20 years or 20 years of wind now, and I'd like to see what that looks like in reality, because we can go back and look at history now. We can look at what did it bring to the county when it came in, how have we benefited, and what have the impacts been. So I hope to have some time to go through the records and put some of those questions together for you, some answers. And for me, I think that is it for now. Either one of you ready? I think I have a minute here. I'm just going to put one other rubber stamp on this to make this very, very clear. There are some rumors and innuendos that are being spread, and I, for one, am to the bottom and tired of it. And I want to put it on record that I do not have any sort of backdoor personal or quiet relationship with Mr. Anderson. We work here in the office, or we work in official means that our clerks have access to, meaning emails or phone calls. Otherwise, we have no conversations. So it's being said that we've conspired about Dallasport. We've conspired with the prosecutor. None of that could be further than true. I've never been in a meeting with Mr. Anderson with the prosecutor by ourselves, ever. We hold things here in session, and our clerks hold us to that and make sure we do it all correct. So I hope that people take that under consideration. And if somebody says those things, ask them for the proof. Ask for those emails, ask for those meeting times, ask for those meetings, and make sure you're hearing the correct information. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just add to that, other than our times in open session, the only times that we all get together behind closed doors is with the prosecutor in executive session, which is by law what you're required to do with some of the issues that we face. And by law, we are not allowed to discuss what is stated in executive session. And if you're hearing things, rumors, accusations, innuendos that are coming out of that, I would be very weary, not weary. I would be very, I would question that, because we're not allowed to talk about anything that's said in executive session.
It's not only talk about, let me add, it's illegal. So.
Without the consent of the board.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there an accusation here? It sounds like there's an
No, there's
accusation.
not. And don't.
No, I'm trying to, I don't know. I haven't heard what you've heard, Lori. I'm just trying to further address that.
I think the public is getting the what you're implying, but go ahead.
Gabrielle, thank you, as always, for talking about where our priorities lie. I would ask that next week on the 3rd, you tune in because that's when we will be getting our first glance and overview of what the directors and department heads and electeds have put forth for their preliminary budgets and what it looks like we have with revenue. I think you said it very well. We are going to have to look at where our values lie as a county. And this is going to be a very difficult budget year there where we are going to have to talk about the true values of the county and what those core county functions are, because there's a lot of things that we do that are not core county functions that we're going to have to squeeze if we're going to balance a budget. And I believe in always having a balanced budget. You speak about a basketball court and other things in White Salmon. The city of White Salmon has their own municipal government where I would hope that they can support the things within their area. The county primarily encompasses and deals with the areas outside of other municipal corporations and jurisdictions. I know many people and it came up today about Dallsport. We have a park in Dallsport that has nothing. There's no basketball court. There's nothing but weeds on that ground. And people have been asking for that to be developed for the last 30 years. There's two problems that come to that. The first problem is we have to have the capital funds. Second problem is then we have to have the maintenance funds. The capital funds, you pay for once every 20 or 30 years, but those maintenance funds to continue to maintain that with employees and your costs for electricity and water and everything else. And we have to look at that in terms of our priorities on where we can invest and can't invest money. We're having a hard time just paying for the parks that we currently have and keeping them manageable and maintaining. We've been increasing the cost at like the Trout Lake Park, that's a campground, so that it can come and actually pay for itself. We've been taking all the actions we can in order to make these things self-sustaining, but parks, we all know, are something that very rarely ever pays for itself, unless it's the Hood River Marina. Andrew, September is next week. It's come really quick. It's not far off. We will be having that meeting next week. I know we all wanted to have budget discussions much sooner. We always have budget discussions throughout the year as we talk about supplemental budgets. But last year we were able to get to the budget much earlier. The reason we didn't get to the budget earlier this year is because of the jail, because we had redirected staff that usually works on the budget to work on the jail issue, and they're still continuing to work on. And so that put them behind on the regular budget, and that's where we're at. We are still within all of our regulatory requirements on what other communities do for the budgets. I know since I've sat here, we've always tried to have the budget done by early December. I know for many years we were finalizing budgets prior to anyone on this board late in December, sometimes the last couple of days in December, and that's not where we want to be. This year, the budget's going to be extremely difficult. I hope everyone spends their time to review the budget and give us feedback on where you feel the priorities need to be, because it is going to be a difficult budget year. Dallsport, to Roger and Robert. As you said, Roger, there's a lot of history. There's multiple decades of history. There's a lot of misinformation out in the public, and there's a lot of things that our hands are tied with. The first thing that is, it was stated that there is a board member who is blocking the use of landfill gas funds for the vessels. I can tell you that from what I have seen, I have not seen any of the Board of County Commissioners block an application or not allow an application to go forward for discussion. I know when I was the chair and in the negotiations, the $200,000+ that had been allocated back in 2018 for the Dallsport Water District system to bring the airport well online, I negotiated for and got that reauthorized with a handshake agreement. up until I believe earlier this year, there has never been an application submitted by the Dallasport Water District or anyone else for the vessels. And I believe that was only done a couple of months ago. So we couldn't allocate dollars until that application came in, and then you have to have a meeting between the chair of the county commissioners as well as the representative from the PUD to come to an agreement on what those applications can be spent on or authorize in an application. There's a lot of history there. Usually when somebody develops, like when we developed phase one of the business park at the airport, the county spent a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money of county dollars to invest in the Dallasport Water District, to invest in the pumps, the pipes, as well as the storage facility so that we could have fire flow at the airport. And it was the understanding that all of that money was invested and spent wisely so that we would have fire flow at the airport. I am not certain, and I have not been able to track down why when the cherry plant went in at the Dalles, the developer, much like when the Dallasport Business Park was developed, the county paid the money. But when a developer was going to use a whole lot of water, they were not charged or required to upgrade the system so that the water vessels would be built. I don't know why that happened. I've heard a lot of stories that supposedly Commissioner Sauter agreed to pay for the vessels. When I spoke with Commissioner Sauter, he said, I can't agree to something like that. I'm just one member of the board. He said I would have supported a application to the landfill gas dollars for vessels, but I can't say that we would do that. And that was my conversation with him. But there was never an application that was submitted. And I can go on record saying that with the application that's been submitted, I am supportive of using landfill gas dollars for the vessels at the Dallasport Water District. I'm still also in support of using the money that's been allocated so that we can bring the when there's enough money and enough development to bring the airport well online using the landfill gas dollars for that. I've always been supportive of that. I've always been there for that. So anything
People
to
on
the
the commissioners
opposite.
meeting right now and
Jeff-
asking questions about the wind.
Jeff King, you have a hot mic.
The only time that you would bypass the vessels is in a catastrophic emergency. It is built into the system that you can do it so that if there is a catastrophic emergency, you can pump all the pumps full on, and then you'd have to end up flushing all the lines and everything else after the catastrophic emergency. That was designed into the system originally. I've never said that we should just do that, only in a catastrophic emergency, because we all want our water to taste good. We don't want iron in our water. And to Sherry, the elephant in the room. I saw the video of the wind turbine falling off. The wind turbines and the rime ice that can get on those turbines when they start spinning, and all of the studies that went into it so that we would set safely setbacks on those wind turbines so that they couldn't hit a car or a house or anything else. And the Board of County Commissioners many years ago updated the EOZ and the requirements on those setbacks so that they couldn't affect any neighboring properties. That is what proper planning does. That is how you go follow the system of checks and balances to ensure that these things that safety is paramount. I would also direct you that these wind turbines have been a source of at least two fires that I know of. One, the Juniper fire, another fire that occurred recently when the wind turbine, as I understand it, hit the substation, the mini substation at the base of the turbine, and that started the fire. We heard from our fire district in Bickleton that the green energy projects have brought a lot of money into these local communities, and they've been able to acquire the resources necessary to fight these fires, because the green energy projects are not the only thing that starts fires. It's also lightning and other human caused events that can start fires. Farming equipment can start fires. What I can say is that the green energy projects and the taxes that they have paid have made sure that these fire departments have the tools necessary in order to fight these fires. We just got a number, I believe, in an email yesterday that the Williams Mine fire is now over $20 million in costs on that fire alone. And that fire has not burned any houses. It's not burned any farms. It's only burned in mainly wilderness area. And just putting that out is $20 million. I just help to put that into perspective that while yes, we've had to look at the green energy projects, and while yes, there's a cost to anything. I was recently in the North Slope of Alaska, and I got to see where all of our oil comes from and what the North Slope looks like, where all those wells are being built and continue to be built. With all energy transfer and exchange, there is a cost. And I would say that Klickitat County on the whole has benefited from the green energy over the decades that it's been here. And I'm glad to see that these wind turbines that are getting older are getting a refresh and getting repurposed for so that these don't happen. You did bring up a good question though, Sherry, and that is the Juniper wind tower turbine. Has that been decommissioned, or has that been put in back in service? And I do not know the answer to that. I know that the one that fell down in Oregon right next to their landfill, that turbine is sitting there right where it was. I saw that recently. But I have not checked the Juniper. But that is a good question. I'll look into it. With that, yield back my time, Madam Chair.
I will be much quicker than that. Let's see, and thank you, everybody else. Yeah, thank you. The two issues, Roger Nichols. I don't know that you're going to get an answer, or all the answers are going to vary. I don't say we a lot because that would take a unanimous board to say we, and we don't have one of those. So I will say I believe there are people trying to revalue the airport well water right. If they can revalue that water right, they might get the FAA attorney to look at it as a gift of public funds and then tear up the contract. We heard earlier that there's multiple attorneys involved. Yes, we have our county prosecutor, we have the city of the Dalles attorney, and then both parties share jointly a FAA litigator who's trying to, well, let me take back, he is in charge of dealing with the FAA on whether or not they sign off on that contract. I don't know exactly what he's doing because I'm not permitted to speak to him. For us to speak to outside counsel, whether that is the city of the Dalles attorney or the FAA litigator, we would have to have permission from the prosecutor. I have not been afforded that permission. I would like to speak to the FAA litigator to see what he's been charged with doing. What are the city and the county asking you to do as the FAA litigant? Because I don't know. I have not been afforded that conversation or a scope of work or anything like that. So if somebody here has spoken to these other attorneys, that's more than I get, and have been afforded. So I don't exactly know what is going on there. Other than that, I guess I will leave it at that.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so next on our agenda is the consent agenda.
I have no issues with anything on consent.
I don't either. Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with 9 items.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Aye. Motion passes. So moratoriums.
Madam Chair, I would move that we sign the resolutions for enacting the moratorium on bulk storage and warehousing of lithium-ion batteries within the incorporated areas of Klickitat County, Washington. Moreover, I would also move into that consideration, signing the resolution in the matter of enacting a moratorium on the siting, installation, or development of battery storage systems, BESS, within the unincorporated areas of Klickitat County.
And that was a motion, correct?
That is a motion to sign the resolutions for both.
So I will step down in second. And any discussion?
Do not have it.
And Scott, we did not recognize you first. Did you have anything?
No,
to-
that's just fine. You instructed me to put together 4 documents because you also asked for the interim zoning controls. And I didn't have time to get those in between the meeting last week and Wednesday's deadline. So I have those for you they'll be going in for next week
Okay.
in your packet. And I'll go ahead and pass those out if you're okay with that, unless you'd rather just wait for your packet.
you can pass it out.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
Number one, I don't know if it's a good idea to do 2 resolutions in the same motion. Secondly, Commissioner Christopher, you said lithium ion batteries. Did you just mean any lithium batteries? I guess he's.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm not entering in a debate.
Well, I was just trying to clarify because you said lithium ion, and I believe the moratoriums
That is
incorporate
lithium.
all lithium batteries. So I just wanted to be clear that what you're trying to adopt is all lithium batteries.
So I have a question based off of Mr. Anderson's.
Would you like to, the motion's been first and seconded, so technically it does. I guess the board can vote to, can we vote to remove the motion or table the motion? Or do we have to vote on it and start over to appease Mr. Anderson?
That's what I was going to ask the clerk. What's
I
our
don't
proper
know that
process?
the proper procedure. I would recommend to the chair for proper, to make sure we're proper to just have a vote on it. I will be voting no, and then I will immediately make a separate motion. To clarify, just to make sure there's
Do we
not
let
a
it
problem
die?
according to the,
We can just let it die.
it's had a second, so it has to have a
Oh.
vote. No? No,
We need to revisit the motions.
Commissioner Anderson is questioning the legality of putting 2 motions in the same motion. So because it's been moved and seconded, it has to have a vote. So my thought was to just vote no on the motion that included both resolutions. And then bring up motions separately for each resolution that would appease his legal question.
Okay. That works.
So with that, I would wait for the chair to call the vote, of which I will be voting nay.
Since we're still in discussion, Did we ever get sign off or anything from the prosecuting attorney's office in terms of whether this is good as to form, and any thoughts on either of these moratoriums?
No, not beyond conversations between me and them and
Because
Mr.
of
Zoll and them
resolution.
individually.
Okay. And I guess sorry, last one, do we have, and I haven't read it yet, I notice in the moratorium in our county code, there is no definition of BESS. Is that something that you are fixing for the update on the land use language? I'm just trying to make sure that nothing can wiggle through by saying you don't even have a definition for BESS.
Yeah, that's a good point. And ultimately, my plan had been to put a definition in with the code updates, whatever code updates follow from this process. I tried in the resolution or in the moratorium and the zoning controls themselves to define it. So that was my goal, was to define it enough in that resolution.
Are you good?
I'm not sure about the legality of that, but make a motion to rescind. Interesting. Go with that, see if it's called out for, I will make a motion to rescind my original motion.
And I will step down in second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
All
I
Aye. Motion's rescinded.
right, now I will make a motion for the Board of County Commissioners to sign the resolution in the matter of enacting a moratorium on the bulk storage of warehousing of lithium batteries within the unincorporated areas of Klickitat County, Washington.
And I will step down in second. Any discussion?
I do not have any.
I would just say that we don't have any literature, factual basis that staff has been able to find that shows that 50 12-volt lithium batteries are a imminent public safety threat, do we? In all of your research?
No, it's been limited to making phone calls.
Okay.
And not because the issue is not important, it has to do with time.
I understand, it has to be seen as an emergency, which means it has to be seen, I guess I will be voting no on this as we've not reached out to the telecommunication companies and other organizations that may have, the landfill, anything else that may have more than 50 lithium ion batteries on stock or lithium batteries. They can be LiFo, they don't have to be LiPo, for their regular operations and maintenance. And to me, this is something that should be dealt with in the building code, not in the zoning code. Because it doesn't make any logical sense in the zoning code. You wouldn't apply for a permit. It would be part of the building conditions under hazardous waste.
Madam Chair, I call the question. That means we end debate, take vote.
All those in favor?
We have to, so we are voting on
Calling the question.
calling the question,
Oh, okay.
not on the actual.
Sorry. Okay, we don't do that very often. So the question is, all those in favor?
All those in favor of calling the question and
Calling
ending
the
debate,
question.
say aye.
Calling the question and ending debate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Anderson?
Nay, I think debate is a good thing.
Motion to call the question passes. All those in favor of the original motion of,
Signing the resolution,
correct,
say aye.
aye,
Aye.
Anderson? Motion passes.
I would a nay on that for the record.
Yes.
There will be another resolution or motion here for more debate. Madam Chair, I make a motion that the board signs a resolution in the matter of enacting a moratorium on the siting, installation, or development of battery storage systems, BESS, within the unincorporated areas of Klickitat County, Washington.
I'll step down in second. Motion in a second. Any discussion?
Yeah. I've done a bit of research on this, and there are more than 500 utility scale battery storage facilities currently operating in the United States. Over the last few years, we've had people come forward and show examples of 2 that caught on fire out of 500. And that was using old technology, not current technology. Of non-utility scale battery storage facilities, there are over 20,000 already in operation in the US. You can see this if you go to the FSEX GoldenEye information. Being that there are 20,000 BES facilities in the US already in operation, of which doesn't seem to be a public health, safety, and welfare, being that they're being built not just in rural areas, but in urban centers and all over. I question the validity of a moratorium saying that it is an imminent public health and welfare and safety issue. I am 100% fully in agreement in directing the Planning Commission and staff to come up with proper zoning setbacks and requirements. But what I am against is passing moratoriums when we have no evidence that's been presented before the body that shows that there is an imminent public health safety threat. So I will be voting no, but that is just my discussion.
I'd like to add to that, to counter that. I did some research too, and I agree, Jake, there are hundreds across the United States, but the problem here is nothing in place. And I would ask that if you're going to research those facilities, you also ask for what their zoning and what their plans are for when they situated those batteries. I think we found ourselves at a loss not having anything in place before we allow something to situate. That's my problem with it. Any more discussion?
I do want to, I'm going to have to piggyback on you and commend you, because that was a very logical response. So I appreciate it. And just because there's 20,000 of these does not make there an emergency. As Commissioner Zoller said, for all you know, all 20,000 of those had already went through the planning phase to create their local ordinances and setbacks and whatnot. We absolutely have not. There is absolutely nothing in our county code to even discuss this. So I guess if one member wants to just pass it off to the planning commission, that's going to take 6 months because they have other work to do. Before then, somebody drops a permit, and then it doesn't matter what the planning commission says because there's already a permit in. That is not doing our due diligence. And so I honestly, I don't even know why I started this discussion. I probably should have just kept myself refraining from debate. So I will end my debate.
Madam Chair, if I may. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say that staff has stated to us that any BESS battery energy storage system project that came before staff would have to go through the conditional use permit, that it would not be seen as a permitted outright use from staff under the energy overlay zone because it was not thought of. And so I would just like to say that we do have regulations in place, like we have for all things, which would set reasonable setbacks on a site-specific issue that would go through the entire process, that would go in front of the hopefully go in front of the Board of Adjustment, unless somebody appealed to SEPA, and then it would go in front of the Board of County Commissioners. And so we do have reasonable, logical, rational systems in place so that if a project was dropped, there would be review of staff, other governmental agencies and everyone else to review a project on its merits. It's not like we're in the Wild West where somebody could just go drop one of these large things out there and nobody could say anything. There would be an entire public process.
Okay, and I have one more comment and then we'll move to decisions. Being that I think how we got to here was the robust look that this would go through and needs to go through with the planning commission and through our planning department, rather than the conditional use process. It's a better process for me and a better look on something that could be very dangerous for our fire departments and our public. So that was my choice to move forward with this. So end of discussion. All those in favor? Oops. Okay, you all.
Well, I would technically say if each person gets to speak twice, then
Yeah,
each person
go
should
ahead.
get to speak twice. Or you should at least ask if the other person wanted to speak twice. The only thing I will add is, yes, there's a CUB process, but I would like to point out this, the Board of Adjustments has 2 appointments from District 3, of which I've made neither one of them. My predecessor made one and this board made the other one against my vote. So why we do have a process, I do not feel comfortable with the way of that process. So, and that ends my discussion.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Mr. Anderson was a no.
You have to call opposed so we can have a voice for it.
All those opposed, sorry. Great.
Well, that was fun.
Resolution passes.
And you're gonna have interim zoning hopefully for us next week.
Yes, if you have any comments on the draft I gave you, please let me know when you can, and I can amend it as necessary. I'll be submitting it for your packet by the deadline tomorrow, and I can change it after that, of course, if you see any errors. I'll also be putting in a request to schedule the required public hearing within 2 months of setting the moratoriums.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Scott.
And just so you're not waiting for my email, I did read them and technically if I was writing them, I probably would have tweaked a word here or a word there. But not anything that's substance related. So to keep from entering into a long giant debate over words, I'm fine with your words.
Thank you. And if you'd want to send me your comments anyway, it'd help you for the
Nope.
future. Okay, all right.
That would enter into the debate of words and
Okay, payroll certification and approvals.
I guess I'll do that. Madam Chair, I move that we pay the payroll warrants in the amount of $213,864.18 and the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of 1,000,000, we're missing a comma on that one. $1,132,807.44 for the date ending August 26, 2024.
I will second the motion, Madam Chair.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Commissioner reports and updates.
We have a 10 o'clock and there.
We have a 10 o'clock, so that it gives us 2 minutes. Would you like to put that off for? Okay. If you're ready, come forward, Mr. Hunter. So Mr. Hunter and Seth Scarola from Public Works.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter.
Okay.
Good morning, sir.
Right ahead.
Okie dokie. We heard the consent agenda pass. Thank you. We have a couple pay estimates. Here, Interstate Concrete and Asphalt or American Rock Products in the amount of 41,000. This, I believe, is the final pay estimate for a Bickleton Highway paver. Again, all federally funded. And pay estimate 3 to Prime Interiors for the Klickitat County Superior Court remodel in the amount of $126,750. And this is also grant funded. So with that, we'll turn over to the construction and design.
All right. In construction, the Bickleton area paving project, the punch list items were completed, so that project is now physically completed. Sundell Old Highway 8, work continues as it has the past couple weeks on excavations, embankments, culvert installations, and placing a base rock as they finish up the subgrade. On road design side, Sunnyside Road overlay, our first internal on-site review will be completed next week. The bridge repair bundles projects, 2 of those 3 projects, we have 30% plans in hand to review. Bickleton overlay box springs, the funding paperwork was part of the consent agenda this morning, so we're tentatively planning on an October advertisement date for that project with construction next year. White plastic edge lines, first draft is being reviewed internally. Curve warning signs, the first draft is actually in review as well. Road safety plan update, the RFQ for a consultant to complete that work is on ad, and we will see proposals due September 10th.
Okay, that brings us to our maintenance side of things. Goldendale and Bickleton shops are working, over on the east side, Matson Road, BSD. And on the west end, we're patching roads in Trout Lake and in Glenwood. The Superior Court remodel is continuing as scheduled. Countertops are being installed this week. We have a Bickleton car show this weekend. We're still in the final review. It's waiting for me, actually, so I have to get through it. Jail vent, 75% complete. The vents have been upgraded. Trout Lake Park upgrades start next week. It's the second phase of the RCO grant.
I am getting a DocuSign for that, by the way, so. But it says on the DocuSign, don't forward. So I'm notifying you so that you can contact them. and then they
Okay,
can
we
send it.
will talk.
Or I can forward it, but it says right on it, don't forward.
Okay, because I thought Commissioner Zoller signed it last, but your name was still on it from when that's
don't
how
know.
they
Well,
operate.
when I've had trouble with DocuSigns recently, we can
Okay.
talk about that.
We'll check into it and see
If-
what's
Okay.
going on.
If it's me signing, I'm fine with signing that. I
Right.
mean, rather than changing everything, if the board wants to allow that, I'm fine with that.
Right.
If that's how they have it, as opposed to holding up a project, but I just thought I'd pass along so you can figure it out.
I appreciate that. We will check into that. KVH kitchen use is still working well. They actually said they may reduce the amount we've been in contact with to make sure everything's working fine, but it seems to be working. So we have a thing that we didn't get last time, but we will this time. Anderson asked for this. This is
Thank you, sir.
current staffing levels budgeted versus what we actually have at the shops. Why is this important to people? Please keep in mind, every open spot means we staff on winter, not on summer work, but on winter work. So open positions can mean routes don't get plowed. Or we plow a lot slower because we combine routes and the routes become bigger, and that's so basically where we sit as we are today. White Salmon has 7 full-time budgeted positions. Out of the White Salmon shop, we have 1 opening. Glenwood has 4 full-time positions. We have 1 opening. So we're 25%. Goldendale has 9 full-time budgeted positions plus a weed position, which we found works better. We actually, because we were just paying them to hire somebody. So we hired the person and they plow. So instead of having 10 people full-time, we have 1 person that works for them, works with weed board in the summer, and they plow in the winter. So that way we reduced how many people we actually keep in the summertime. Because we were paying the weed board to hire somebody, and then hiring somebody or having somebody that worked with our crew in the summer. So we said, well, we can reduce that we hire the weed person, and then that person comes over to us in the winter and plows. They're our employee though. And Bickleton, we have 5 full-time budgeted. We have 1 opening right now. We've been looking to get, but we'll see. I don't know how many of these we will fill ultimately. We also have a retirement or 2 that is coming up, and we have some other things. So there will still be more openings than what are listed here. I can't really get into those because
But are we getting a lot of applications for the positions
we are getting some, not very many.
and not people with CDLs?
Exactly. Matter of fact, 2 of the whites, because we had earlier this summer, we had 4 openings in white salmon. We hired 4 back. 1 didn't make it. He was here for a day. 2 of them are non-CDL people, which we are working through to train them. We'll see if that works out or not.
Do you normally train for CDL, or there's not usually there's like a school you got to go to?
There is
IITR or something.
Yes. So what the deal we've made with the people that we've hired is they're going to pay for the school and we're going to keep them on.
And be flexible with their schooling. And
yes.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
Because we can't find people with CDLs. Yeah. The one person that made it one day had a CDL. Didn't work out though.
Because they can go make more money
Yeah.
with CDL right now.
Yeah, they could make more money with a CDL. Yes.
Yep.
So
You said hired back. You hired people that had left?
we've hired people. No, we have hired people. When I said hire back, we used to hire back people in the winter time as temporaries, and those were typically people that retired. The thing is, though, some of the people stay a lot longer, so they really don't want to come back. You know, if the people that are familiar with PERS 1 employees, they could retire very early, and so they were reasonably younger. But as PERS 2 or PERS 3, you have to put a lot more time in to retire. And by that time, you really don't want to go back to work. So that's the staffing levels.
Thank you for the update, sir.
And what we wanted to do, periodically we look at our fees. And so we looked at our fairgrounds fees this year. We're proposing some increases. The one thing we truly make money on, and again, I caution, we're not really in the business to make money. We're in the business to provide a service. But the service that actually does do very well is our winter riding. But because of cost increases, because we've had people in the past that would groom for us that were ex-employees that had retired and would come in and they would trade grooming for their fee, to pay their fee. We come out way ahead in that. But that person has since said, I don't want to do that anymore. So, and they haven't for the last couple of years. So our costs have gone up some. We're still doing good, but we're proposing actually increasing those fees to basically $15 an hour. It's $10 an hour to rent the arena, 15. We've actually looked at about 4 or 5 East Side counties, did the research what they're charging for their facilities. I remember it's not really apples to apples in a lot of situations, but as close as we could get. And what our costs are, and this is what we're suggesting, and I can run through some of them. The exhibit hall is the one we're really looking at increasing fees because frankly, it now is a full service building. It has heating and cooling. To have heating and cooling, it costs money, so we're proposing to raise the fees to cover some of that cost. Event camping, we're really not, we are increasing the camping, except for dry camping. Again, only time we actually see dry camping is during the fair. But we are looking at increasing those costs. Sanitary dump, just to get in line, it's not used that often. The full use of the grounds and for closed events, we're also proposing a small increase there. The grass area, which now we're starting to see some rental of that. So we're proposing to increase that. We've actually added a cost for the dually barn. It is our facility. We do pay the electric and everything else, so we have a cost on that. And then we've also looked at other fees, a lot of no increases just because it didn't make sense. We are looking at increasing the livestock barn a little bit, and that's pretty much it. I mean, we went through these pretty meticulously, looked at what everybody else's, what our costs are, and
So
trying to bring it up.
just for clarification, where on here, if a group wanted to put on, say, barrel racing on a Friday night in the summer, what section would that be in and what would that cost be?
That would be, let me get to it here. That'd be the outdoor main arena.
I thought so.
And so if it'd be $500 to do that for a day.
That is just the reason I ask is I've gotten that complaint for 6 years now. The price is so high that the barrel racing groups can't use it and or sustain themselves to put on riding events, which then bring in economic development from Yakima and the Dalles and stuff for people that would come up here and ride. So, and I don't necessarily disagree with them.
Well, we checked and seen what it is. The arena is very expensive to maintain. And honestly, it's actually on the lower side because we've heard the same thing. So what other people are charging, it's not uncommon for some people to charge $2,000 for a day event. Big arenas take a lot. Ours does too. And we did hear, we've received complaints over the fair that we need to bring in more material. We're going to be looking at that, but that is a very high cost. And every so often you got to go out and bring the material in from the outside, which again is work. It's expensive. You do it with equipment.
I say the last time, didn't Riley donate a bunch of red rock or sand or something to put in there?
Riley donated sand because we ran into trouble. I think it was 18 or 19. I don't remember what year it was, but yeah, we had a big rainstorm and the arena flooded. And the only way to get it out was to get rid of it was more clay material. We pulled it out, put sand in. So I'm going to talk to Tony just to get a price.
I'm hearing sand isn't going to fix it. That they don't like sand and blah 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 blah. So yeah,
I mean, we'll work with
the fair group might have different opinions on your. Yeah, just giving you a heads up.
No, I've heard. We've looked at it. We'll see what we can do. It helps mix in with what we got, but to go out and purchase topsoil, that gets to be very, very costly.
For that much, I would imagine.
Yes. Again, while the arena, it could be improved, it's, you talk to other people, you'll get other arenas that's very compatible with each arena is a little different. You go and look, some of them are a lot harder, some of them are softer, some of them have bigger rocks.
Right. I just, where I'm coming from is I understand, renting the county building for someone having a wedding or something that's a private event.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also see, I guess I would say taxpayers subsidizing a bit events that are open to the public that bring in economic development or tourism. Having those at a different kind of a cheaper fee is kind of my thought process.
I mean, we can look, keeping in mind, the board has chosen a lot of those smaller barrel racing events are kids events, and there is no fee. They end up waiving them. So, and I don't know what Glenwood, they kind of let them have it, but our bigger events are the Christian Cowboys and things like that. The barrel racers that have approached us don't want to pay. A lot of them don't want to pay anything. they want us to waive their fees. Again, that gets to be pretty costly, especially if they want us to groom them and everything. But we kept that fee the same. We did not increase it.
How much are we currently spending on the fairgrounds a year that we don't have revenues for? What's our burn rate on that?
It's high. I don't know it off my top of my head, and I really don't want to say because I could be wrong. But we can talk about that during budget, or I can bring that back to you next week. It's up to you. You make the call. I'll be honest, it's the highest of any facility we have.
Okay.
I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
I know we've been talking for years about how we're going to increase revenues to stop this bleeding that we have out there. And the fairgrounds is, it's a public facility. It's used for the public, but we also have to look at the prioritization during the budget. The RV hookups, your proposed increase, that still brings us into the lowest tier from the short amount of research I did of cost of, anywhere else for RV hookups, private, public, everything. And when we're trying to figure out how we're going to stop the bleeding as much and find ways to raise revenue, while that is a significant increase, is that enough in order to start stopping that hole?
We looked at it, and you are right. If they were rented outside of the event, you're 100% correct. But they pay for the event, plus they pay for the RV hookups. We do not have anybody that rents, we don't house people up there because we don't have anybody to keep an eye on.
Right.
So if the RV parking was outside of the fair proper, the fairgrounds proper, like most places are, then we could rent it year round or pretty close. And then you have a higher rate because they don't have access to the fairgrounds.
Yeah, but then you also have to deal with evictions and
All
those things.
that is true.
I don't want to be somebody's landlord.
That's true. That is true. So there are pluses and minuses to both. But we did increase it. We didn't increase it a lot. And the reason being is we're one of the very few that still allows camping within the facility. Most of them are out. They've moved their vehicles outside of the facility.
Madam Chair, it is 10:15.
Anything else, Mr. Anderson?
No, I just thank you for your proposals. Let's have the discussion
Yeah.
during budget update.
Yes. The only one I ask that at the very least, because winter riding is starting soon, we want to catch this because we do yearly passes and everything. We're going to be sending letters out in September to let them know that the rates go up because they can start locking in positions. We kind of treat it like a ball game or something, like if you were going to buy season tickets to the Mariners or something like that. That's how we treat our winter riding. We give the season ticket holders first priority. But we want to let them know if we're going to raise our rates, that's the time to do it. So, we can either pull it out of our agenda or out of the resolution and just do the winter riding rates and then reevaluate the other stuff later, or we can do it all now. I just need some direction from the board because we do want to move forward on the winter riding rates. Because it's coming, our letters go out around the 10th of September.
Well, I guess in order to make a decision, I need to see what the costs are, how much we're spending and how much we're bringing in on the whole and what your proposal looks like. And the sooner you get that to us, the sooner we can get it on the agenda to make a decision.
I'm personally fine with doing the winter riding as you have set here. I would like to see some changes, maybe up the campsite fee, lower the barrel racer fee.
Okay.
Kind of scenario, and I would love to have those discussions, but to send you forward and to not mess up all of the public, I'm fine with accepting your recommendation for indoor arena use. We're for winter riding.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so we'll bring a thing before the board for winter riding. That we do, that I can tell you, we do average right around $2,000 to $5,000 in the plus every year on winter riding with our current fees. So we do well when that's the only thing we do well in. But I agree, the bigger discussion needs to be had over all the fees. But if it sounds like we can bring forward just the winter riding, we will do that on a resolution, because that way we can get the letters out to the public.
I'm fine
Okay.
with that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
I don't know, I'm gonna save this because I'm sure when we talk about it again, you'll bring another one, but
Next up, election updates. Heather Joby. Good morning.
Good morning. We are mostly wrapped up with our fourth of 5 elections this year. We certified the primary election on Tuesday. The state certified it on Thursday. So depending on which precinct you were in, you had 14 to 16 races on the ballot. Washington State is the top 2 primary, so the top 2 vote getters move on to the general, regardless of party. So the senator race has gone from 11 to 2. So Raul Garcia and Maria Cantwell will move on. Congressional District 4, Jared Sessler and Dan Newhouse, who are both of the same party, will move on. And that one went from 8 to 2. The governor's race went from 28 to 2. So that'll be Bob Ferguson and Dave Reichert. Lieutenant Governor from 5 to 2, that'll be Dan Matthews and Denny Heck. Secretary of State from 4 to 2, Dale Whitaker and Steve Hobbs. Treasurer's race was just 2, so that stays the same. State Auditor was just 2, so that stays the same. Attorney General went from 3 to 2, Pete Serrano and Nick Brown. We'll come back to the Commissioner of Public Lands. The Superintendent of Public Instruction will be Chris Reichdahl and Dave Olson. The Insurance Commissioner race will be Phil Fortunato and Patty Kuderer. Legislative District 14 State Senator stays the same. We did have some voters who were not happy with the fact that they are no longer in District 14. So we got some questions about that. Legislative District 14 Representative Position 1 will be Chelsea Demas and Gloria Mendoza. The local candidate did not move on. Representative Position 2 will be Anna Kennedy and Deb Mijares. District 17 Senator stayed the same. Representative 1 for District 17 was unopposed, so he will move on. And then in Legislative District 17 Representative Position 2, it will be David Stube and Terry Niles. In the commissioner races, those will both move on as they were presented in the primary. They will, however, be countywide for the general election, so everybody will get to vote on those positions. Supreme Court Justice Position 2 went from 4 to 2. Sal Mungia and Dave Larson are moving on. And the Precinct 30 Republican PCO race was determined in the primary. So that's just a primary election.
I still can't get past the precinct 30. So it's like, I have no idea. You're probably the only person in the room that knows where precinct 30 is.
It's right where Precinct 30 is.
Well, I know, but
So,
it used to
yes,
be.
it
a
used to have
name
it used to have a name.
that
It had a
we all
number,
could-
but it
we-
had a
right, but we
name.
could all associate it with a location. And now we can't. So where is it, by the way?
It's right where Precinct 30 is. It's a Goldendale precinct.
One of the 3 Goldendales.
No, we have more than 3 Goldendales. There's Goldendale anyway.
It
There's,
used to be Goldendale 1, 2, 3. We have more than 3 now.
well, but Pine Forest is in Goldendale. I mean,
suburbs.
there's, yes, yeah.
Okay.
So, but yes, those 3 Goldendales are still those 3 Goldendales.
I
But
was gonna say, I didn't
just
think
by
we
name.
went to a 4th.
No,
Inside city limits.
No. So in addition to those races that were on the primary ballot that move on, we will also have a Court of Appeals, the Superior Court race, the PUD race, the presidential race, which will have 11 choices. Even though Kennedy dropped out, his name will still appear on the ballot because his campaign, even after his announcement that he was withdrawing, asked to stay on the ballot. So there are 11 presidential choices, and there will be 4 initiatives as well on the general election, which is November 5th. We did have a turnout of just shy of 49% for the primary election. We expect a higher turnout for the general.
What's our average on primaries? Are we pretty close to the average turnout percentage?
I don't know. I would hate to speculate on that. So I think we did better than the state average, but I didn't look at that information before I came over. So to the exciting Commissioner of Public Lands race, as I'm sure you are aware, there is a statewide mandatory manual recount of that race. The last time there was a statewide recount in a primary was in 1960. The last time there was a statewide recount at all was in 2004 with the Rossi Gregoire gubernatorial race. That race was split by, or the difference was 133 votes. This one statewide is a difference of 51 votes, which is 0.0064%. And the RCW requires that if the difference is less than 2,000 votes and less than 0.5%, that there be a recount. So we will be doing that recount tomorrow at 8 a.m. I don't anticipate that it will take more than 1 day, but it will be a full day, and we will recertify the recount numbers on Thursday.
Is this a hand recount where you're looking and checking every ballot or running them through a machine?
Nope, it's a hand recount.
You just got a stack of this person, you're making sure they're all there and.
We will sort them by precinct because we know the results by precinct, and then hand tabulate the results per precinct and verify those results.
Be interesting what.
So the public is welcome. You are all welcome. Commissioner Zoller will be there as part of the canvassing board. So let's see. The issue is not the first place. That's Jamie Herrera Butler took that race as the lead candidate. It's between the second and third candidates. Dave Up the Grove and Sue Peterson are the race, the second and third place.
Is that in order?
Yes.
Who's second? Yeah, okay.
Yes. Dave Up the Grove was second. So.
Is currently seated in second.
Yes, he had 51 more votes than Sue Peterson. So the recount has to be completed by September 3rd within all of the counties, and then the Secretary of State's office will certify that recount on the 4th.
And the court challenges probably happen after that.
Any questions of Heather or? No? No? Yeah.
And sorry for all the work.
Well, the state's paying for it, so.
That's what I was gonna ask. I thought they only paid for off years.
With the mandatory recount.
Mandatory recount.
They pay, yeah. So we estimated the cost at about $6,500.
Other than that, they pay for odd year elections. We pay for even year elections. Is that correct?
Mhm.
We pay for the real elections and they pay for the ones we don't really have.
But they will pick up the tab for this
Didn't know that one. I didn't know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I can back up real quick.
Sure.
I will make a motion to approve the final pay estimate for Bickleton area paving project CRP 372 in the amount of $41,911.49.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I move that we pay the account or pay the approval of the pay estimate number 3 to the Klickitat County Superior Court Remodel Project in the amount of $132,933.64.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. Department update, human resources? No? Are you refusing?
Snuck it in. It's right at 10:30.
We're on task here.
I think we were off by 2 minutes on one of them, but
We're doing good.
for
today.
us, that's insane.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Gonna switch it up on myself here, and I think let's start out with the jail update since I told the corrections officers it'd be at 10:30. So if that's okay. So since last week, I thought I'd be focusing on patches, and I haven't been. I've been focused on other areas. As you know, we've scheduled interviews for the jail administrator. We have highly qualified candidates and a date set and the interview panel set, which will include Chief Hepner. We thank him for that, and Mr. Briones from Island County. And so I have draft questions I'll send to you today or tomorrow. And the position closes on the first review. So, but I think there's time in the schedule if we get more applications, and you should decide to add someone to that interview panel, we can do that. So, so that's all good. And the die is cast and we're moving forward. Impact bargaining with the union. Casey and I met with the bargaining team yesterday to discuss impact bargaining. It's going well, maybe a little more complicated than we anticipated, but we'll get through it. And we'll have the same outcome in mind. I think it's just how we get from here to there, and that'll all be determined when I hear back from the union. But I did appreciate their time and frank discussion that we had. You've heard me talk ad nauseum about this ORI number, of which we have to have one. After developing 11 policies, 2 interagencies agreements, and 1 management control agreement since last Tuesday with the help of a lot of good folks, we were granted a number. It's not the end of the process. We're probably rounding third, heading home. I need some documents signed, and then I'll send all of this information to the WSP, and then they'll choose to either do an audit or approve it. And but and he said that could take a week. So if you parallel this with the hiring of the jail administrator, I think we're in a good position. Speaking of signing documents, the state police has an access user acknowledgement master document. And I think typically the jail administrator would sign that as the agency head. Since we haven't got that person yet, and we can't wait till we get that person yet, I would propose that the board chair sign those documents. And I've given those to staff. And
While we're on that subject, I did get a chance to read that document, and I have no problem with the chair signing that document.
so, and then when we get the jail administrator, we can revise those documents and all of these documents that have, that need to be revised, but this will get us moving forward. So do we need a motion for that, or is that a verbal to authorize the chair to sign those documents?
I think it's just verbal.
I would say verbal.
Okay, there may be others. I'm not aware of any others. I think I got all the ones that need to be signed.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's before a document is signed by the chair, I want to make sure that there is a verbal, whether it's the Trout Lake Park RCO grant or this, to make sure that the board is in favor of whatever the chair is signing.
I appreciate that. No, Elise is trying to keep me out of trouble, and I appreciate that too. So, but so again, once we get this signed and turned in, then they'll take a look at all of it. There may be some IT issues between state police IT for access, that's the name of it, and our IT department. But our IT department's working behind the scenes and all of this technology. So I think we're in a really good place. I think we're really close. Getting that number given to me so that we could put that in these documents was a big step. So, so I think that's the jail update to this week. So, any questions about the?
No, just thank you again. Yeah.
I'm getting lots of help, getting lots of good help, and everybody, I think we're making progress.
Only question I had is, you said there'll be a list of questions for the jail manager candidates. Where did we form that list of questions? Was that taken from some other place? Was that our interview panel, the police chief and the jail person giving you that list? Where did we get the list?
As I mentioned last week, I had put out an email to the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs and throughout Oregon, and I got some back. But Jose Brion sent me, I've been talking to him a lot this week. He sent me prepared 12 questions that have been used in other jail administrator or commander. So I went through it, and I think it's I think it's worth you looking at, and we can add to that. Director Quinn asked if she could submit a behavioral health type question, and I told her, of course, and when she does that, I'll submit that to you as well. These interviews will probably have an hour at tops. There's 12 in here. Of course, you don't have to prove all of these. But I think what's good here is that Jail Commander Briones is also, for the interview panel, listed parameters of what a good response would be. You know, so if we're not in that business, sometimes it's hard to know what a good response will be, though we'll have Chief Hefner and Jose in the room as well. But so I'll send these to you, but that's where it came from. This list I'm going to send you came from Jose.
Right. I just wanted that. I think that where it came from is an important factor to the public who might be listening.
Yeah.
To make sure it wasn't us that formed that at least ground section of questions.
And I will ask Chief Hefner if he has any questions he thinks, and I'll send these ultimately out to the 5 of you so that ahead of time. And then when we get to the interviews, if the interview panel ultimately at the last minute decides to replace a question or take a question out, then we still have plenty of time to do that as well. So again, I think we're in a good place and moving steadily forward.
I know this has been a heavy lift, and you've relied on a lot of people for a lot of help. And
absolutely.
so please pass along my thanks to everyone who's been working around the clock to make sure this is a smooth transition.
I thank you, Commissioner. I will do that. Couldn't do it without all the help, and there's too many to name,
Yeah, not just with in-house, but all the other agencies.
It's
yeah,
from both states.
Yeah.
So it's been but I will pass that on. Thank you, Commissioner. So I submitted yesterday the IT written report and code compliance written report. And if you have any questions,
do not.
George is here. I think I don't know if Randy, oh, there he is. We got him out from behind the sandbags. He's
Doing better this week.
Better.
The sandbags behind the frosted glass.
Frosted glass.
Any questions for IT?
Do we have any recourse with Blue Mountain for the amount of time we've spent working on that, where they said it was our problem?
I do have a meeting.
Here, he can sit here. That's okay.
I do have a meeting. I can't remember exactly when it is. I think it's late September to discuss that very thing with them. But nothing has been determined yet. I did just get the monthly bill from Right Systems, and actually it wasn't as bad as I expected. It was about double what the standard bill is, a little less than double what the standard bill is. So I was very pleased that it wasn't what I was expecting. However, I think what they did, because we have another project going on with them, and a lot of the work they did in getting things set back up for us
I think they charged it to that project because it was the same work. So, kind of because we were going down that path anyway. Although, you know, they were up all night with us.
More
I
than,
mean,
more
literally.
than one night.
More than one night, yes.
And I will mention generally that there's been some terse conversations with Blue Mountain about how this should not have happened and cannot happen again with life safety. And Jeff King and Phil have been helping Randy in that. And there will be a meeting and there will be a very direct conversation with them regarding that service.
I'd be happy to sit in on that meeting if you'd like.
Okay. I will add you to the list.
Thank you. Anything else?
Okay.
Thank you, Randy. You survived. Yeah.
So far, so good.
We'll do the HR now, Casey.
Just have a few updates. Open enrollment will be here before we know it. Typically, it is November 1st.
Hey, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. George, before you run away. My apologies.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So typically open enrollment is November 1st to the last day of November, and they have changed it up a little bit. This year it will be October 28th through November 25th. So just to give everybody a little heads up, November 25th is a Monday, so I'm not sure why PEB has changed the dates, but it'll be a little different. They're going to roll out some of the changes for the enrollment on October 4th. So we'll know more of what's changing, if anything. I haven't got any rates or anything. I expect to get those in the next couple weeks, along with the CPI. That should come out September 11th. I think they said that will be announced. So then I'll be able to update our PEB rates along with the pay schedules for all the unions. And we'll know more
Can you
on
give me the date again for the last day to update your, or to change your, say, health insurance?
November 25th
Yeah, that's not
will
right.
be the last day at 5 p.m. or the 26th.
Pacific Standard.
I might need that, so I'm making a note of it.
End of business day. No. And like I said, the CPI, they announced that will be coming out in the morning of September 11th. So as soon as that comes out, we'll be able to start updating the pay schedules for all the union employees. And then that leads into my next update for the overtime salary. Oh,
So the last number, it was 3.8 CPI and it's been dropping steadily. So, and our contracts are 80% of the CPI, which is a number I think fiscal managers placed in our budget. But if the trend continues, that number could drop again by August, September.
yes, yeah. February it was 4.3, April it was 4.4, and June it was 3.8. So the trend is gradually declining. So.
All right.
No, you're good. So our overtime salary threshold, we continue to have that discussion of our exempt employees and who is affected by that. We had 2 employees that went from exempt to non-exempt this year in 2024. And in 2025, there will be a lot of employees that will be impacted if salaries don't change and if the schedule that LNI has released does not change as well. So I just want to keep everybody in the loop and updated. The schedule, of course, is based on the CPI, so there are a lot of moving parts, but I'll give you guys what we're looking at right now. I'm going to show what the current schedule is.
And this could change based on the CPI. And then it has a list of employees of who would be affected and the grades as well. So this has 2023 and 2024. So the implementation schedule is released every year by LNI, and it kind of shows the salaries and the changes. And in 2023, when it was released, the salary threshold for January 1st of 2024 was 69,264. And then the CPI changed, and so it was decreased to $67,724 for the 2024 year. So if the CPI changes, there could be a decrease and the salary threshold could change. And all of this could change as far as what employees are affected and what salaries are.
Is it based on the grade step one, so the base salary? It's not where they're at in it, it's the base salary for that grade?
It's where they're at as far as what their annual salary is, but the discussion we need to have is our salary schedule is gonna have to change at some point, because if you look at the salary schedule that I provided for you and what is highlighted, if we look at 2028, there's gonna be grades up to grade 70 or steps up to grade 75 that are gonna be affected. So we're gonna have to look at reevaluating our pay schedule. And
So I think next year you'll hear us come back to the board, ask for, we need to bring somebody on board to help us look at the overall pay schedule. In addition to, we thought about this year, putting forth in the budget a salary review, but didn't seem like the right time. But that with, I mean, ultimately in a couple of years, you're just going to have less than 10 people that are salaried, and everybody else will be hourly.
And all of this is based on nothing changing as of right now.
Right.
This is no COLAs given, we don't know what the CPI is gonna be. So a lot of this could change within 3 weeks, once the CPI is released and LNI releases their updated schedule, but if you look at the salary threshold between January 1st, 2024 and January 1st, 2025, there is an $11,000 increase, and that's a huge jump compared to the previous years. And so it just impacts a lot more employees than it has in the past. And we're just gonna have to reevaluate things. And it is gonna impact departments and their employees, and a lot of employees are gonna move to that non-exempt status.
Have we looked to see, I know, remember back when this first came up years ago, might have been before Rob was here. We started looking at our exempt employees and we had them do an actual time accounting for some time. Have we looked to see those positions, and are they in this yellow section? And if we have looked at that, what's that cost gonna be if they either services goes down or less gets done?
So that earnings code was created to track it.
Yep.
But I will tell you too, that was before some of the grade changes happened as well.
Right.
And so I'm not sure some of it would be accurate when we tracked it.
Didn't actually ever look at the data.
We didn't?
Because we decided not to go down that path, because there were other issues with making exempt employees track actual time. So we've gone away from that. So any of the data that we had several years ago.
I guess though, if we could look back to see in that data, the positions, not the money, but the actual positions, and how many of them were working well beyond 40 hours per week, we should be able to look at that and then do some sort of an estimation that these positions, by going to hourly, are going to cost us this much more. Or we could make some assumptions that we can at least build into the budget, because that could have a huge budget impact or a significant budget impact if you've got, what, 15 or 20 people that might be, quite a few hours of overtime, or we're going to have to look at those positions.
I mean, we have talked, I mean, I guess the easy thing, it's not the easy thing, is to say, well, it shouldn't cost us any more because we're just not going to get overtime. But what's going to happen is if the job is a 50-hour a week job, 50 hours of critical work, then either we budget for 10 hours of overtime or we reduce service.
That's
that
what
10
we're
hours. So
getting
it's, that reality is either we pay more or we reduce service to the public.
And I mean, some of the positions, there's been some restructuring in departments, so I don't think looking at the hours reported a couple years ago would be accurate to today's hours and that position in that department as well. So,
And to some degree, it's a morale issue as well. If you've been salaried for a long time and now you have to punch a time clock philosophically, watch, then it's can be considered a negative for those employees.
wow.
A big change. But you're right. My first report 5 years ago was about this, and I think Randy and Casey's last report before I started was about this. So it's been on the agenda for a long time. It's just now we're really starting to see the impact.
Yeah, and we've been talking about it for 5 years, and this 2024, 2 people actually had to move from the exempt to the non-exempt status. So it's been a discussion, and only 2 people so far have been affected, but the $11,000 or $11,000 annual increase to next year, it's a huge change. And so this next year might be the biggest impact that we see.
Well, because I'm looking at some of these positions, and they are positions that you do the job and you have to get the job done every week in order to fulfill the duties.
Yeah.
Or everything else stops. And so that's what I'm looking at. This could have a pretty large impact on overall county budget
Right.
because of this position we're in. When we go to some of the others, I think you could, the next jump next year, you might be able, to weave that in. But these positions are like, if this doesn't happen, things don't get paid.
Right.
And how do you reduce those services? So just maybe we need to put another box in there for the expectation and put 60, 80, $100,000 in the budget. I know, Jen, I don't like, but if we can't do some analysis, we've still got to account for it somehow. Or at least make an estimation, or we're going to be very quickly in problems.
Even if it's a transition, just get till we have a chance to address what's not getting done. What needs to get done, what doesn't need to get done. There'll be a transition period for directors and electeds.
Right. And then, I mean, maybe the COLA increase that we, budget separately would be enough to cover most of this when we look into the vacancies. I don't know, but I know we do have to account for it, and we've got to figure something out, because I know when I'm looking at the names, I'm like, yeah, they work way over 40 hours a week.
So what we're gonna have to do, I think, Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, is we'll find out, what did you say, September?
Yes, yeah, the
Those are-
CPI comes out the 11th, and so hopefully the new schedule will come out shortly after that. I think last year they sent out the new schedule in October.
But it begins January 1st.
Right.
So we'd have to, depending on what the final number is, notify these employees, their directors and electeds. And so there's not going to be a lot of time. We'll be in the budget. So if you want to do that, we'll have to make those adjustments. But the state and feds aren't going to wait for us. So January 1, these folks, if nothing changes, would become hourly. So it will be an impact right away.
Are you hearing anything on changes from the 1.75x or the 2x to the 2.25x? I mean, that's where it bumps.
No, yeah, and the one positive is that they are changing it based on the CPI, because when they originally talked about the schedule, there was no changes. They were sticking with it. They weren't basing it off the CPI. It was set in stone. And then they kind of adjusted it. So thankfully, the schedule is being updated on an annual basis and the salaries are changing because 5 years ago it was set in stone. And so now every year they are making the adjustments. So hopefully that $78,249.60 that they have set for January 1st, 2025 will decrease. And that isn't.
But it's still going by the multiplier of the minimum wage, and that bump is going up, right? So no matter what, you're going from 2 to 2.25, your CPI change is not that much comparatively in terms of that jump.
Yeah. And like in January of 2024, it went from 69,000 to 67,000. So there was a little bit of a decrease from the original estimate.
Right.
So,
but the problem was it was still at 2x.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I think that's how the state, they got such a pushback 5 years ago. They just put it in there. Folks kind of forgot about it and it just bumps up more and more every year until here we are 5 years later. And I guess the bottom line is whether it's 2 more people that are affected this year or the list, so there'll be more people each year.
One other huge issue we could have is what if the state changes the minimum wage and increases the minimum wage a little bit, and then you're at 2.25 on that, and then it would change all our numbers and really have a huge impact.
And then we're looking at a pay schedule that we've got grades that we either need to move. Yeah, it's all gonna have to be reevaluated.
Okay.
Sorry, Casey.
Anything else?
Nope, that's probably enough.
And then, and then I wanted to add to what Mr. Hunter was talking about earlier on the CDLs is we have been meeting with the union and including Jeff and Seth, Casey and I. And the union is aware of the challenges we're having with the CDL. So it will come up at bargaining. They're very cooperative now as we find a way forward. But you know, things such as is there a different wage for somebody that doesn't have their CDL? Isn't there, you know, the probationary period? Who pays for the CDL? Do we get paid back if they leave? All of those issues are going on all around the state. And the union is being a good partner with us as we try and find a way forward. So I just wanted to mention that. Any questions for HR?
I just thought I remembered back when we originally were having these conversations that it was at the base rate, so the step 1 rate, because it'd be weird to have people in like a step 9 of 68 be salary, but then have someone at a step 1 of 72 be hourly.
Didn't we determine that it's
and
whatever step they're in, not the whole rate, not the whole grade?
Right, or we were talking about a midpoint in the range and how to do that. So was that, excuse me, was that decision something done locally, or was that something that we got clarification from the state? How did we make that determination?
The 2 that were affected this year, we just went by what their by what step they were at. And
Right.
so.
But there was some, we didn't know how that was going to work. So how did we get the answer to that?
We did not get clarification as far as how we needed to update our pay schedule and.
So to do it by step in the grade is the actual dollar amount is a more conservative approach. If we do the whole grade, then it's going to drastically increase the number of employees. So we can call the state. I think they're going to say it's they give us a dollar amount. Anybody in that dollar amount range is affected. The next step up, if they're not in, maybe they till the next year, but we'll see if we can get.
So that was our internal determination.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have,
Would have been much more dramatic to take the other approach.
But yeah, then everybody all the way up to a 73 would all be hourly.
Yes. But we'll see if we can get.
Okay. I just don't want to get crossways with the state.
No, I appreciate that. Okay. Thank you, Casey. Kenzie, join us. Kenzie. Go ahead.
Hello. I don't have a lot today, but I'll start with, I was at the fair and I did have an educational booth there. I saw some of you there. And it was great because I was able to pass out recycling schedules. I actually ran out of flyers for the special collection program. I needed to bring more of those. A lot of people are very interested, especially now that we have the baling twine up and going again. And I had some great conversations with folks around the county and got asked some questions I didn't know the answers to. So I got to go home and do a little bit of research myself. Joe and I have signed up for a training on September 18th about standard operating procedures for hazardous waste materials. So we're both excited to attend that, and that is being covered by grant money. We're getting reimbursed. For the drop-offs for the special collection program, we had our first twine drop-off with the new collector. There was 104 pounds dropped off from White Salmon and 256 pounds of twine from Goldendale dropped off. And this is to the new vendor in Ellensburg that is turning the baling twine into concrete fiber. And then the other plastics drop off, that's the standard softer plastics. There was 72 pounds from White Salmon and 54 pounds from Goldendale. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. I did send out an email and I'm getting some feedback from the members that were on the resolution as to when we can start meeting. I have a couple more kind of officey, things to do and get their letters sent out, but I'm getting feedback from them as to when they can meet so that everybody that can attend in person can. And then we're gonna start meeting and start working on the issues through the committee.
Kenzie and I are going to meet with Michelle Mulrooney, who's the grant coordinator for the recycling prior to that meeting. So things are moving forward. And I think Mackenzie forgot to mention that she played another role at the fair, is that her booth was strategically placed between the political parties. So she wound up being
Yep. The buffer.
the buffer.
Yep, that's what I have, is the political buffer.
Question on the baling twine getting turned into concrete fiber. Do you know anything about that? Are they grinding it up and mixing it into little tiny pieces, or do you know?
I'm not sure of the exact process. I talked to the gentleman that runs the company a little bit, and they were actually still refining processes, but they needed more to, I guess, I don't want to say experiment with. So he's very, very happy for our contribution to that.
Well, and we're paying him to take the bags, correct?
We are not.
Or no?
He's taking it for free. I'm just paying the gal that transports.
Okay.
And we get reimbursed for that.
Yes, that's grant covered.
Well, it's kind of my question where it was going is, are we paying somebody to recycle, and then are we making sure they're actually recycling and not just hauling the bags to the dump themselves? But it sounds like if he's not getting paid by us to take it, I don't have to worry about that. So.
Yeah, he was recommended to me by a countrywide initiative that is working on how to process baling twine because it's a huge problem for most counties. And so he was certified through them, but if the drop-offs keep working well, I plan to hopefully maybe go down there myself and tour his facility and see exactly what's going on once we kind of figure out this is what we want to stick with.
Anything else?
Are you going to be at the Huckleberry Festival?
I was not planning on attending myself. Joe, they did request recycling bins, so Joe is transporting and bringing the recycling bins to them, but
Oh, we're not going to have a booth or anything.
I wasn't that historically we have not. So I wasn't planning on it this year. It's definitely something I can look into next year though.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for doing the fair. Those are long days. And I was going to stop and visit every time I went by. You were visiting with people.
And speaking of Joe reports that the trains are running on a regular basis, and they're consistently doing 300 cans a day. And after touring the facility, I know a can is a lot of garbage. So 300 of those a day so he said it's up there. They're busy out there, and so that's good. And then finally, so the ongoing post-closure for Horse Thief, as you know, it's been in limbo for 10 years. The county had a meeting with ecology to get back up to speed a couple days ago, and I reached out to HDR. They're the firm who did the post-closure report, And they're going to work with us and ecology to get the criteria set for the additional testing. And we're going to move forward and get that thing closed. So there's, so we've re-engaged HDR, re-engaged ecology, and we're moving forward. So we should be able to keep reporting on when HDR does the criteria. The issue in 2017 or 16 was ecology had some questions about the criteria used for the groundwater testing and maybe the air testing. So we're going to revise those with HDR and make sure ecology approves them before we do the testing, get that final round of testing done and move forward. So, so that's good news. Any other questions for solid waste?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mackenzie.
Thank you.
Jen? Fiscal manager.
Are you ready to give up the solid waste?
Pardon me?
Are you ready to give up the solid waste hat yet?
Sure.
We have a plan. October?
I don't have a plan, but we're moving forward. Yes.
Hello.
Good morning.
My part's really quick. Budget, specifically 2025 budget. So preliminary budgets will be presented to you as RCW stipulates on the first Tuesday of September. So that'll be the 3rd. The board will have about a week and a half to review the budget, make notes, provide myself with any questions ahead of time before we have our first workshop on the 12th. That workshop will be with finance and the board, just to review what was presented to you, go over those questions you may have. And that is currently scheduled for the morning, so half a day there. Then following that week, we will have workshops every Thursday all day long until they're no longer needed. Additionally, in regards to public comment this morning, and to piggyback off what Commissioner Anderson had stated as the reason as to why we are later this year than we were last year with the budget. In addition to the jail taking from my time, this budget posed an extremely difficult starting point, with a deficit being much more substantial than in prior years. This required much more work and effort from me in regards to review, finding and correcting errors in the initial entries, analyzing and developing summaries and dashboards in order to educate the board on the presented budgets submitted by departments and offices, as well as the options that the board has available to you in order to adopt a balanced budget. I feel strongly that this process is extremely valuable to the board and worth taking the time for. So that's why we're sticking to statute instead of trying to push for being earlier.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification, Jen.
Any questions?
Not for me, no.
When do you anticipate I guess the answer is being done with the budget, although we won't be done until we sign in December or something. But do you have any idea when you anticipate how many Thursdays we will need to get to our tentative budget?
That's really up to the board.
Yeah, sure call.
That would be definitely your call. I tell the board every year that it's my goal to get done before the holidays. So people can relax
I mean,
for
I
the
don't-
remainder of the year, but yeah, it really depends on the movement and the decisions that the board makes and how quickly that goes.
My crystal ball is going to be a long slog.
From what I'm seeing so far. Unfortunately.
I'm always the optimist.
Oh, we'll get it done.
It'll be good.
Like
It'll
everything else,
happen.
we have to get it done. There's no question about it. I guess you could, in a worst case scenario, and we never want to go there again, is, December 31st, which this county has done before and should never do again. But, so, it can't go on forever, but it can go on a long time, or it'll seem like a long time.
If we're at December 31st,
We're in deep trouble.
when Heather tries to pay things on the 2nd, that will not happen. I will tell you that right now. I have yet to experience a smooth
successful year-end transition on the budget side of things. My predecessor was able to do it because he did most of the year-end stuff, but now we have those duties divided up, and it's very challenging with the system in its current updated form, I guess. It's the best way to say that. So
What Jen is saying is we should never entertain going to December 30th.
no, we should not.
And I don't think it'll take that long, but again, it's up
It
to
would
you.
be very, very challenging.
Any other questions for fiscal budget?
Look forward to it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
All right, WSU contracts. I sent those to the commissioners with some minor revisions. Since then, looking at it again, I saw one change because initially I wasn't dealing with WSU in this. There's one minor change where they deleted the term professional services contract and just call it an agreement. I think that's minor. And of course, at some point, this all has to go through PA as to form. But on the, and then have it in front of you, I'm assuming, but yeah, okay. So on section 4D, under terms of interagency agreement, the county will, were originally stated contingent upon approval of the board. County will continue to support contracted personnel on professional or retraining leave. I've added pre-approval, thinking that what I was trying to do is, I had Jen look at it and talk to the chair, go through, trying to remember the conversations that took place over the last year or so. And so I think the commissioners, at least at the time, felt they wanted that pre-approved, not post-approval. And then the biggest changes are on section F. And I added at the end of that, all travel costs are contingent upon approval by the Board of County Commissioners prior to approving the travel. But I was reminded, it dawned on me that WSU covers the travel. And in the past, we've covered the fuel. So it may be redundant. We can follow up with WSU to make sure. But in the past, I think we found out that some of the travel expenses were submitted both to us and to WSU. And if I recall, the conversation was their dean or whatever said that, well, they cover the travel for their staff, and the Harley would be considered their staff. And
So yeah, I would piggyback on that. We do have him on recording that says that they cover travel. I have no problem if WSU wants to use one of our fleet vehicles and we pay for gas for something like that. To me, it's the issue I have is a conference in Colorado, a conference in whatever. In all these conferences have credit hours attached. And I think we can find ourselves in the case where we used to find ourselves, where somebody was doing continued education for their doctorate or whatever professorate academic stuff and using us to pay that training. So I have no problem with the vehicle, the gas. I do have a problem with hotel and lodging and all that stuff when WSU said straight out that they cover that.
We cover continuing education in a bunch of different ways. We send people to training on a regular basis. Some of them get credits and require them. Some of them don't have credits. So I just want to clarify that.
But I think in this case, Commissioner, they're not our employee.
Right.
That's where I'm getting to.
I mean, I think that's and now that we're not supporting clerical or office staff, then they're all WSU.
They're all going to be WSU.
Or at least
yes,
the one. And then if an extension agent is added, they would be faculty. So I mean, so the other thing is opposed to what I've done is just strike travel. You say we're not covering it, or talk about covering fuel costs, be very specific, fuel costs for a county vehicle. But
Yeah, I was going to say that was a little muddy for me, so I like it.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to do county vehicle fuel costs, I'm all fine with all that. Just I want to make it. I would like the language in here. I personally would like the language in here that we do not pay for conferences, continued education, all that kind of stuff. So the future doesn't try, because what happened in the past obviously happened for some time before it was caught. And I don't know who's sitting here down the road and are they checking those things?
I think a lot of things have been through understanding and agreement in writing, moved to pre-approval versus post-approval. And I think that was the
That'll help.
WSU's got that point, I think. And in here, we can.
That's why I just want clarification of what is approved and what isn't in here. I don't want to be in a gray area.
And then, by the way, they did add a whole section of non-discrimination, which probably should have been in there all along. So it's
yeah,
it's good. So what's your direction on the travel? How do you want to, because what we'll do is I'll draft a counter for the chair and then she'll take it back because she's been the lead on this for discussion with them about the changes the county would like to see. So would you like travel just taken out altogether? Would you like it left in there as fuel or a county car?
I don't mind fuel in a county car, but they did say they paid for travel for conferences and things. So I'd like to strike that.
Yeah, I just want the clarification because I'm fine with fuel in a county car too. I just want it clarified in there so everybody knows crystal clear what the county covers and what it doesn't cover. And if it's not named, it's not covered.
Do we need to specify fuel in a county car? What for? That doesn't mean that they pay for conference and then we pay for fuel in county car to go to conference.
Think about that. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the only thing I had was back in the appendix, up to $35,000 for other expenses. I'd like some wording in there to make sure that it's pre-improved expenses. Right now, it's just a discussion with the board to let the board know they're going to spend the money on that. And it could turn into there was an update given and they kind of talked about they were doing this, but the board wasn't sure if they had authority to say yes or no. And then the future board didn't say anything. And so WSU just spent the money. I would like to make sure there's an ask. Hey, I'd like to set up a master gardener program. It will cost $7,000. Can I have your approval? And then the board goes, okay.
And I
But
think
that way it's clear.
and maybe we can do that by taking the word consultation out and putting in pre-approval. So
That works
it's
for me.
actually a vote of the board. And I think, and I could be wrong, Chair Zoller, is that they wouldn't be bringing these would be the things we've talked to them about. We may request them to do that. Wouldn't
Right, but then tell me what the cost is. So if we're dealing with recycling or composting, I need to know what that cost is going to be, and then we give you a yes or a no, and then you institute the program. That's the way I kind of see it.
And so remember, there's two agreements that we're talking about because we don't have one for 24. So I don't anticipate us spending the whole 100,000 that was budgeted in 24 because we'll have the 4-H cost and we'll have Harley's cost, but the $35,000 may or may not, you may not pick anything from here in the last 4 months of the year. So there, we won't spend the whole 100,000. One of the other options they presented that they also didn't like, but they presented it was if the money didn't get spent, it rolled into next year. And I think the chair felt and WSU felt that was problematic. They put it out there just as an option, but then we're going to have a fund, and
yeah,
I can feel Heather looking right in the back of my head.
Say
right now.
that gets very messy.
See, I told you.
Not interested. Glad that was pulled out.
Right. So we moved to the reimbursement basis with prior approval as opposed to post approval. So at some point we'll be bringing with these changes. I'll have you look at them one more time, and then the chair will probably meet with WSU. And then, but there's 2 separate years, this year and then all of next year. And you budgeted 100,000 this year. And I think Jen put 100,000 in for next year. That was the number you gave us. So it didn't change.
If we get those changes that I'm asking for, I will then give my permission to sign the document for what that's worth.
And actually the 35,000, because it says up to, will decline every year because as Harley's wages, the WSU employees' wages go up. And if the 7,500 stays fixed, that increase has to come from somewhere. So it'll come from other services. But in the future, commissioners can change the 100,000 should they decide it's not enough to cover these other programs it may be interested in. Are we good with the changes? And I'll redraft them and then the chair can meet with WSU to see if they're okay with it and then bring it back to you one more time. Then with your permission, submit it for PA approval as to form at that point. Okay.
Get it done.
Okay. And I've already done the jail update. I think, Madam Chair, that planning, the skateboarding planning director would like.
You can't get away with anything here.
I mean, I saw you go by in the street, so would like some time if that's okay.
No skateboard at
great.
the longboard, sir.
Oh, sorry,
Thank you. There's the difference. And I only do the street because they don't let me skate on the sidewalks here.
Thank you. Go ahead.
You're actually going to stay with me. Okay.
I'm gonna stay.
You told me not to get him in trouble.
You want to leave?
Excuse me. Got something caught in my throat. As a,
Don't fake like you're choking and leave me here by myself.
We can wait. You can go get a drink if you need one.
and I do only have 11 minutes. This might be more of a queue up for a conversation this afternoon if there's time. It's about our hiring process as we're doing interviews and trying to replace Denise, who's retiring at the end of September. Just as a reminder, I know you all know this, but just so we're on the same page, organizational structure that we have for the planning department is 3 planners, which can be any one of assistant, associate, or senior. They're listed as all 3, each of those 3 positions. So you could have 3 seniors, you could have 3 assistants, you could have any combination. And then 1 long-range senior planner, and then our office manager. Currently the long-range senior planner position is unfunded, but it's still in our organizational chart, so it's still there and available. We've had you know what to expect in this. I've been hearing in my last job, the job market's very difficult to get good applicants. So we were pretty pleased, really. We had 24-ish applicants for the position. Of those, probably half have some kind of minimum qualifications. And I wouldn't say the minimum that we're looking for, because what we'd be looking for would be either a planning degree or some planning experience. And only maybe half a dozen had that. And a chunk of those were very focused on GIS careers and would specifically say in their applications, like to work for a public works department in GIS or specifically GIS. So we focus more on 3 that had 2 had pretty much just straight out of planning school with some internship experience, and 1 who is well beyond with a lot of experience, senior planner level for sure. And we're advertising for all 3. And it wasn't necessarily that we're looking, okay, well, there's a senior planner, so we're going to grab that one. It's more who's the best fit with the department. So that's how we've been looking at it. So we're not necessarily looking for one of the positions. We're just trying to see who the fit is. And we had something come out of it that took me a little by surprise. I didn't really expect a senior level planner to apply. You always think that there might be one, but the one who did apply out of Arizona has a very strong interest in long range planning and a background in both. The person indicated that they do also current planning, but their real interest is long range planning. And I think if we were to offer that person a job and they took it, I think the best benefit to the department from this particular person would be to incorporate them into long range activities. That said, if we did that, we would really be suffering as a department in the current planning, because we do need even just an entry level person to take on the work along with, Lori and Rebecca. And so what I'm coming to with isn't a request necessarily to fund that long range position, but a request to explore it and to consider continue looking for an entry level planner, but also look at a long range planner on a grant funded short-term guaranteed basis. And I've got a quick handout for you. This just shows some of the funding streams we have that we've been talking about that you're aware of for grant funding on top. So as you know, we've got the Clean Energy Grant. The way we're structuring that is to front load it a little bit, having a lot of the work over the next 9 months. And then the remainder of the work over the remainder of the grant period, which would pretty much be the next year of the grant, a total of $350,000. The reason for trying to front load it is partly because of the solar ordinance, which where we'd be concurrently looking at a solar ordinance and the comprehensive plan updates. And so a lot of that work would be upfront work. The other reason is this isn't 100% guaranteed. There is a ballot measure to cancel the funding for the second year. So they're encouraging us, the state doesn't know how serious to take that, but the state contracts are encouraging us to try to get as much as we can in the front year. And if we can't get the work done, well, if it's funded, then we'll know and we can amend the contract. So we may even be trying to put a little bit more into the first year. But that depends on being able to do the work, partly because these are all tied to products. So we have potentially 350 for that. Also, we've got a periodic update grant that is going to be coming to us starting July of 2025. We'll get 75,000 for that July to June fiscal year and 75,000 for the next. So we've got $500,000 coming in over the next 3-ish years, just short of 3 years. Of that, 50,000 will be going to Public Works for GIS, and there'll undoubtedly need to be some contracting work for high-level studies that are beyond staff's ability. The remainder of it is a question as to how we do the work, because we've got, as you see, the projects below, we already have the critical area ordinance we're trying to wrap up over the next 6 months. Shoreline management plan, same thing. Then we've got the solar ordinance and the comprehensive plan funded by the grant, and then the moratoriums and the work on those. That's not to mention department management being involved in the ongoing department running. So these are things beyond me to do my role, part of it myself and the team, because they've got the current planning to deal with. So I will need help, and that's going to come in the form of putting a lot of this money toward a consultant, or if we want to consider putting it toward a staff person who'd come on board knowing that their continued position would be dependent on grants or a change in the financial situation of the county. So that's what my request to you is to consider that, not to give me an answer today as far as, yeah, go for it, but it'd be, I'd like to talk to this person. It's a two-way conversation because it'd be a big risk on their part, making the move, coming to Klickitat County. I think this person definitely has the writing skills, the background to contribute on the current planning, some high-level applications, be able to help with that, but really focus on the long range and still allow us to hire somebody at a more entry level to be trained up for the current planning. And so my proposal would be, and I'll just 1 second. My proposal would be to authorize a conversation really with this person. I'd like to include Chair Zoller. I don't know if both other commissioners would like to be involved or would be very welcome. And I'd like Rob to be involved. Casey was involved along with the planning team in the initial interview, but I'd like Rob to be on this one and any other recommendations you have. And it'd be a conversation / interview, kind of a second stage of this to see if it would make more sense for the county and how that would work, please.
I guess where I'm coming from is we kind of look for a senior planner and we're told that none existed. I still believe we need one. Understanding you have 2 org chart boxes and only one of them is funded. If you were going to ask for, instead of funding this one, fund the senior planner and not fund this one, and you were asking for a change with a little extra money, I would be all in favor. And then we can discuss filling the entry level position with your grant option. I think that's a better approach to lock in the senior planner level person, which we're going to need going forward, even after these projects are done.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're constantly going to be having the next project. I would hate to miss out on a senior planner because we made a contingent on ongoing grant funds. I would rather miss out on a entry level planner because we lost grant funds. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of where I'm at. I know we're going to pay more for a senior level planner. We can use part of these grant funds to cover it, but if we're funding one org chart box, I would rather make sure we're funding the senior level planner using a little bit of grant money, and then the rest of the grant money we can discuss on the entry level planner. We're not going to get a senior planner on you can work here for a year, but we're not sure if you're going to be here after that. And then we're going to lose somebody. So that's just kind of where I'm coming.
And I think I'm understanding that you're sort of talking about how you move the money around also, because obviously the entry level planner, we wouldn't be really using the grant funds for that because they wouldn't be doing the grant funded work. So you're just talking about overall big picture budget. The funds would be helping to carry.
I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think you're going to lock down a planner to move here when they're only guaranteed a job as long as we have the grant.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't.
I appreciate that.
I don't know that you would.
No, I certainly wouldn't.
So unless they're guaranteed that we got them covered, I think you're wasting your time. So that's where I'm saying, regardless on what that extra 20,000 or 30,000 is based on entry level and senior planner, I think it's a valuable option that I would much rather fund the senior planner position, even if it's a 30 grand more than the entry level planner position at 30 grand less.
So that perspective, I understand, and I can support as long as we know we're getting the entry level planner too, because if we don't have that, I mean, it's one of those things with the long range planning, it's as important or more important than some of the current, but the current is sitting right there in front of your counter waiting for our applications to come through. So it's they're both important. One is maybe more important long term, but it's easy to push aside that.
So what you're saying is technically, if the board's final answer eventually, whenever it made an answer, is no, you only get one org chart box, you would choose the org chart box that's the entry level planner, not the senior level.
I'd have to, and I just find a way to work with consultants or my own workload.
No.
But I agree with your perspective that if we could, I'd want to have this senior plan, this one in particular. I think the best value to the department when you look at our team we have is long range senior planner. I think compared to being a current senior planner, what he contribute as a current senior planner of what we already have in house is much less than what I think he could contribute as our long range planner. So I'd want the majority of his work to be in long range, which means we still need to backfill for, Denise, who's she's a associate planner, but often works at a senior planner level of expertise. So she'll be very difficult to replace as it is.
I can't remember of the clean energy grant phase 1, phase 2, how much did you have budgeted for consultants to do?
Trying to remember it's evolved since the application. I want to say we had about 120,000 for consultants for solar and the battery energy storage system studies, and another 30,000 for, so about 150, I want to say, was about what we had said a consultant would be needed for. That doesn't include if we were to utilize our consultant contract. If we just determined we need extra help and we're going to use our contract consultant to do a little bit of the extra work on the side. There was some discussions with them about including one of their associate level staff members to help out with some of the work, some of the research and some of the work on that. That's still being defined somewhat. And it's going to be depend on our staffing level. When I applied for the grant, my third week on the job, it looked a lot different. Things look a lot different than they do now. And not worse, in some ways better, but this is a lot more work going on than I knew at the time.
I guess I would, since it's kind of quiet in the room, I've always been adamant that I have no problem hiring staff as long as there's grant funding. But when the grant funding is over, don't come asking to be full-time, even if that's like 5 years from now. I'm sure they will still come asking for full-time. They just shouldn't expect much. So however you want to work within that parameter, as far as for me, I have no problem.
Would, after you ask your question, make your comment, would there be time to continue this conversation this afternoon? I need to be at a budget meeting with Jen and the other directors right now.
You good with that?
Okay, what time would you like me back?
We have nothing scheduled
1
this
o'clock.
afternoon, so.
Great.
But I think it's the only question at this
I'm
point
fine
was,
with working through this and continuing on with this discussion until 12:30 if need be versus taking a lunch. but-
I can make a quick comment and then maybe you would not have to come back. We can see if they need more information.
Okay.
I'd like you to come back.
I think this is one of those ta-da moments. And I'm excited because I don't know how long Mochi struggled, looking for senior planner, looking for help, looking for qualified people and fulfilling our staff so we could get some things done. And I understand what you're saying with the loss of Denise. And I like the idea of an employee versus a consultant. I've had bad experiences in the past. Sorry to consultant land, but it's surfaced before that the money spent, you would be, in my view, better off with an employee invested in our community, invested in the job here, doing the work for us. And I like the idea that you've asked for continued conversations with this person to see what they feel about this kind of transition, if they'd be willing to come here and work through the grant cycle and be committed to be here with us for that. And I think that's an important phase to take on.
And this is also a big deal. So in the department, I'd appreciate more input as to our side of things to see if the person's the right fit for this county.
You know, when Scott talked to me about this, I think your first year, Commissioners Anderson and Christopher, we talked a lot about trying to find that long-range planner, comp plan update, shoreline, critical areas, all this. We hired Prothman, spent a lot of money. I think it was posted well over a year, maybe close to a year and a half.
Thank you.
16 months. So we've been looking a long time. Then we tried to find a consultant and the commissioners moved the money from staff to consulting and we couldn't find a consultant. And I think it was said there was no one out there. So, you know, it may be not the best timing, but it's still a good opportunity.
Well,
That's kind of where I'm at. At this point, we don't know. And we don't know if they even want the job, but I'm more than willing to be as flexible as need be.
good for you.
So
To interview. We'll charter a flight.
Why don't you, I know you're late. Why don't you come back at 1 o'clock?
That sounds good. Okay.
I'll
Well,
take
thank
well,
you very much.
shower to think.
I'm willing to let him.
I guess I don't understand going to lunch for an hour and a half to continue a discussion
And
that you can have right now.
I think.
It's
Scott's
only
bas-
because there's a budget meeting with the directors
But
downstairs.
I think Scott's basic question was being allowed to investigate this.
Investigate, negotiate, sit
I'm
with the
willing to
chair,
let
have
him
an
do that
interview.
portion of it.
I'm fine with that because I'm not giving you a final answer on anything until we know what that person says anyway.
And I'm good with that.
So I agree.
Mr. Anderson, would you want to have a conversation with just me later on then today, or?
That would be great.
Because I wouldn't mind having some more conversation as well. And then as far as who could be involved in a continuing interview / conversation with this individual, what would you like as far as who would be?
Typically, the full board only participates together in director
level.
You can, I mean, obviously you can do whatever you
I,
want.
if the
but-
chair wants to participate, I'm fine with that, but I would also kind of urge the board members to stay out of it and let you do your job without micromanaging.
I think he requested the chair initially.
I would appreciate the input, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a really unique situation
Mhm.
and I think we need to capitalize on it
And-
however we can.
And part of the reason is because this person's in Arizona and we're not flying them here. And so having a conversation through Zoom, that's why I like an extra.
Whatever we can
Someone-
do, I don't want to put the comp plan or anything else off any longer. I want those things to move.
Yeah, I'm very flexible at whatever this ask is. And so I'm fine with Commissioner Zeller sitting through there and
He was not talking to you, Casey.
I got her down there for school, so I will go down and interview.
And again, Scott's. And again, Scott's not, this isn't an interview and a job offer. This
Right.
is
Right.
right.
Yeah.
And this applicant seems to understand, very good to work with, very friendly, expresses a lot of interest in the long range planner position. So I think he'll be glad to have a
Yeah.
conversation, seems to be patient as well. I'm just going to throw one other thing out there, and this is probably way too early, but one thing in the back of my mind that I've been wanting to consider at least as a presence on the other side of the county. And I don't want to characterize this individual, but he's very big on biking to work, mountain biking. He likes, I'm not saying Gold doesn't have good coffee and beer, but he likes good coffee, good beer. He seems like there could be a fit in the White Salmon, sorry about that, White Salmon type area.
You're doing
And
so well.
I know. I've been saying Oregon more and more recently. It's just a thought that maybe this is someone who 3 days a week would work out of that office, and maybe 1 day a week I would, or we'd have a transaction. Just there's a spot over there that I've been talking to Jeff about, and I thought it might be nice to have a presence over there some of the time at least. So that's a possibility that might come with this position, especially as it'd be long range focused and not necessarily have to be dealing directly with some of the other current planners.
And that's why we built that building originally, was to
Mm.
make it more accessible for West Side people.
So I'm not coming back at 1, but we'll have a conversation.
We'll have a conversation.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Are you
Thank
late?
you, Commissioner.
Bye. Thank you, Casey.
Thanks for your generous offer.
What?
Hey. So we bypassed Commissioner updates. I see it on the list for this afternoon. Do we want to continue with that? And do we have anything under new business? Anything?
I have not had any board meetings from last week to this week. I have no commissioner update.
Mr. Anderson, I have to go back and look what I did.
Yeah, you had
I get
3
lost.
meetings yesterday. I had bridge meetings all day yesterday. We had our 4th priority work group legislation for the county revenue on Thursday. That went the same thing, more background, but we continuing to dial in on we set staff to come back with more information when it comes to the revenue streams.
And you're talking about the bridge.
No,
Okay.
this is county revenue. So this is,
Okay.
we'd set the priorities, and priorities was, to bring the county tax from 1 to 3%, so that you could increase it without a vote of the people. So that was one of them. Another one was the coroner, getting 200,000 or so for the coroner position. We also had the getting a greater percentage of the receipts on timber for the timber tax. And we're starting to whittle those down to the things that'll actually move the dial in terms of county revenue.
And I have to clarify, who did you have this meeting with? I'm sorry.
This is the task force, the state task force.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Wasack.
Yep.
Wasack task
Okay,
force.
now I'm up to speed.
And the one that really rose in terms of revenue creation for the counties was the REIT tax. When we gave up the second portion of the REIT tax, and we were, I think, the last, if not one of the last in the state to give up that for the sales tax. And so what they're talking about is a REIT tax that would pretty much bring that back in.
That was
And
only 250 grand, was it not?
for us, but when you look at the statewide, it's a huge amount of money.
Well, I don't disagree, but I don't know how that solves this county's budget problem.
Right, but remember, this is a task force that's looking at the overall budget deficits of all the counties. Some of these larger counties are looking at $10+ million budget deficits in just their operating budget. And so moving the small dials are not gonna to affect, these kind of changes when you look at, and we're gonna see it as well when it comes, when we look at the percentage of general funds that go towards the sheriff's department and public safety, it's a huge amount. And so the things that have to be pulled in terms of the levers have to be pretty large, otherwise there's huge.
I would say even for us, it's probably the largest, because if you change from 1% to 3%, 1%'s only 50 grand, 3%'s 100.
Yep.
REIT's 250, it's still a bigger number
Still a bigger
than the
number.
1 to 3%, so.
And so the conversation is where are we gonna pull those levers at the state and expend that political capital that has a good chance of success? There's discussion, amongst the group that the REIT might have a much higher chance of success than the 1 to 3%. Just because the REIT, the 1 to 3%'s been tried over and over and over again.
And I don't think the 1 to 3% would have near as much community support as REIT would.
Precisely.
I don't think you get near as much outrage from REIT. Yeah. But I wasn't a 1 to 3% fan anyway, but.
Well, we've got a couple more meetings. Is there anything that you guys see that are levers on the revenue side that will be that are out there that we could pull that are going to have a viable impact on this budget deficit?
Other than eliminating sales tax, the state eliminating sales tax for green energy projects, data storage, things like that.
I brought that up.
That's gonna be a bigger number for us. I think than either one of these two. But that's only if you're throwing a project in every year.
Right, if you're doing a project every year, it'd be much like how we budget, timber tax, it's really difficult. Well, the timber tax is easy, the county trust land timber, that's the one we have a hard time
Yeah,
budgeting.
but one project's worth of the state's discounted sales tax could make the difference of 4 years of REIT.
Absolutely.
So
That's-
technically you don't have to have a project every year, you just have to have a project every 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And it's still a better. And in the same regard, I don't think the general public's gonna have a problem with you taxing the project. They have a problem with you giving tax breaks to the project, which is what they're currently getting. So as far as voter sentiment, I think taxing the sales tax on the projects, you have community support. REIT, you probably have community support, 1 to 3%. I worry about the implications of 1 to 3% when the county takes 3%, cemetery district, the hospital, fire, library, school, you pile that all on. And those increases are gonna go nuts. So sure, the county only got an extra $100,000, but you start piling on all the other junior taxing districts and people are gonna see their property taxes go nuts and they're not.
Well,
in
the
favor.
property tax won't go nuts, it'll go up 3%.
The increase will go up through.
Yeah, 3%.
But that's compounded, so next year you got 3% on the.
If
3%
everybody
you
takes
got
it.
before, well, and we know they will. Well, we don't know they will, but I would be willing to wager anybody in the room $100 that they'll do. Or at least 90% of them do.
So I guess I made that case for the sales tax. I pushed that. It's definitely on the table. And I also wanted to push that to the green energy tax side, and push it there as well, so that.
But see, I don't think if the state wants to give them a sales tax exemption, them giving them an exemption on their state sales tax and letting us have ours, that doesn't cost the state any money.
Right.
So it's not like the state has to give up
So
revenue.
the conversation we're having there is if the state wants to give that kind of a tax break to them, go ahead and give it, but at least reimburse us for our portion, and that might be more palatable to the state for making the change. The conversation I had with Paul Jewell was, well, we've already got this, remember the last change in the state green energy code where they can opt into it. In that one, it's the state portion of it. And I said, well, why can't we just copy what they've already passed and then we get our money back? And that seems a lot easier. And so Jewel and I were going around and around on that, on what's the best way. But from my perspective is we've got at least 2 shots. If I can't push that, because a lot of counties don't get this green energy sales tax money. And so to
It ain't
them,
help
they
them at
don't
all.
care.
Right.
And these are the big ones that have more of the sway when it comes to this. It could help us and maybe 5 other counties, but we're trying to fix the whole problem. And so where's the most appropriate place for that to be? And so that's why I'm trying to at least still incorporate it into the other task force on the green energy tax shift side. And maybe we can push it through as one group there. So yes, that one is like highest on my priority list in
I
terms.
can't wait till next year and hear Lori give these updates for me that you're giving right now.
You're gonna. Why would it have to be Lori?
Well, whoever sits on Wasack next year.
Right. Could be any.
Could be anybody.
Could be you.
No. I doubt it.
I won't ask the question.
I know, the only thing I know is next year, I probably won't be tuning into all of these meetings.
Smart man.
So that's my update on that meeting, and bridge meetings all day yesterday, but we're still chugging along.
I think my board meetings were all uneventful, Columbia Gorge Housing and couple other ones, we were just doing housekeeping, nothing really to report about.
On all those 3 meetings you had yesterday, there was nothing?
No.
I was looking at 8:30, 9:30, 10:45. Oh, I guess one of them was.
They were repeated. Yeah, sometimes their schedules messed up on that. And they kind of combined the mid-Columbia housing in with that. And sometimes we're all talking, sometimes it's just one of the boards. They're just kind of reconfiguring.
Who has taken Joel's position?
They're going out for applicants.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
they haven't hired yet?
No, they're going through a professional service. So we just made the decisions yesterday about closing that out and funding somebody so they can reach out and look for an executive director.
Find a headhunter.
And then the next position under him too left, I believe.
Both of them left.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, and then they had some administrative changes. So we were doing housekeeping.
So who's
last 2
running
weeks.
it then? Is Joel
Uh,
still? running
Karen
it?
Long. She was in the office and she's maintaining
Okay.
with the 2 different boards. And so
Okay.
we all meet together. Mhm. Yesterday's meeting was better. We did get staff update and some things they're moving into reconfiguring and getting it moving again. So, but they're good meetings.
Are you going with Prothman or a different outfit?
They had 2 different ones we had to choose from yesterday. And one actually looked for the person and the other one actually looked for the person plus help build the new process. They're going to reconfigure their processes and something.
The processes of what?
What their focus is and what they work on.
So the job description of the CEO?
Mhm.
Okay. Like, does that mean like the whole program is gonna be going in a different direction or?
Just smaller things, I think.
Okay.
Relative note, director of the Wasatch or insurance pool is leaving as well, so.
The executive director of the insurance.
Second in command is taking over. And I don't see any changes. Same mentality, same whatever, but since you brought up a change in the.
It changes. Mhm.
Yeah.
People going on to bigger and better things, I guess. I saw one of our attendants last week had a name after or an acronym after their name that I'm like, ooh, are they affiliated with them now? So. But I don't know. Like people are changing their career paths here all of a sudden.
That I've got nothing else.
Either.
Whatever paperwork to sign that's still down there at that end of the table.
Do you want to consider this session then, since we have nothing after lunch, it looks like?
I'm making a motion if you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready for it.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting of the Klickitat County Board of County Commissioners until next Tuesday, noting that we don't have anything between now and then that we will all be involved.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I would just like to say, I hope everyone has a happy Labor Day weekend.
I will tag on to that I appreciate not having to go to lunch for an hour to come back and have a conversation for 15 minutes. And I will tell everybody that's out there like me who can't wait for this week to start. You're not like me. It's college football season, folks. Come on, this is week 1. Let's get it.
That's me.
Let's get amped up on our team.
I'm done with that.
Wow. I don't
You
have
can go
time
talk
for
to Rob and
that.
Keaton. So.
Nobody here's got my team, but we can all still be amped up on our teams.
Hearing no more discussion. All those in favor?
No relevant discussion. I
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.